Su-won found herself within the pages of a book, tasked with the formidable challenge of conquering the antagonist, Shinjin. Initially believing herself to be the hunter, she soon realized she had been overpowered by a villain. It must be said, the villain's obsession with love is truly astonishing. Chapter 1. Transforming the antagonist into a spouse? Pain.it felt as though countless fine needles had pierced through the gaps in her bones, relentlessly pricking her with each movement, causing Su-won to gasp in agony. With great effort, she opened her eyes, only to be met by a blinding whiteness. This was not the ceiling of a hospital, but rather a crystal chandelier adorned with fragments of diamonds, its refracted light overwhelming her senses. The faint scent of disinfectant mingled with an air of high-end fragrance, both unfamiliar and extravagant. This was not her rented apartment. Struggling to sit up, Su-won discovered her body was as pliable as a puddle of mud, particularly her right leg, which throbbed as if it had been severed. Looking down, she beheld her leg swathed in thick bandages, seeping with spots of crimson, a sight both shocking and disconcerting. As she inhaled sharply, an alien memory surged into her mind. The original owner of this body was also named Su-won, the cherished daughter of the illustrious Su family, and a quintessential supporting character in a melodramatic romance. Titled Chi Me Too, the original Su-won harbored a fervent and obsessive love for the male lead, Guyanshin. To prevent Guyanshin from uniting with the female lead, Lin Weiwei, she recklessly devised a scheme to provoke the story's most ruthless and obsessive male counterpart, Shinjin. She had calculated that Shunjin's vehicle would pass down this street, and that Guyanshin would coincidentally be nearby, yet she misjudged Shinjin's temperament. Who is Shinjin? The rightful heir of the Shin family. He lost his parents at a young age and was usurped by his uncle, who seized all that belonged to the Shin family. The hardships he endured in his youth molded him into a figure of vengeance, with a ruthless disposition and profound cunning, a person even Yama would avoid. Upon reaching adulthood, Shunjin returned, strategically reclaiming the Shun family from his uncle, driving him to disgrace and ultimately to suicide. What chance did a mere girl have to play tricks before such a man? The moment the original Su-won rushed out, she was recognized by Shunjin's bodyguard and was swiftly thrown to the ground. Her right leg struck the curb, breaking upon impact. And what of Guyanshin? He did arrive, but merely cast a glance at the fallen original Su-won, furrowing his brow to utter, "What a nuisance," before turning to pursue Lin Weiwei. In a fit of pain and fury, the original Su-won could not catch her breath and fainted. When she regained consciousness, she found herself in Su-won's body. Welcome, host, to the Rescue the Male Supporting Character System. This mission's world, the melodramatic romance, Chi Me Too. Mission objective, to conquer the male supporting character, Shinjin, and prevent his descent into darkness that would lead to the destruction of both the male and female leads' families, culminating in mutual demise. Mission requirement, to evoke in Shinjin a singular desire for you, becoming the sole obsession of his life. Failure punishment, annihilation of the soul. The cold, mechanical voice reverberated in her mind, causing Su-won's body to tremble violently, nearly robbing her of breath. Conquer Shinjin, the ruthless male counterpart who kills without hesitation and possesses a mind deeper than the ocean? This was no mere task, it was a death sentence. With tears in her eyes, Su-won lamented. She had merely pulled an all-nighter to finish a project, and now she found herself ensnared in such a hellish predicament. At that moment, a soft click echoed as the door to the ward was pushed open. A chilling aura immediately enveloped the room. Instinctively, Su-won raised her gaze. Backlit by the light, a tall and imposing figure approached. The man wore a bespoke black suit, the impeccably tailored fabric accentuating his broad shoulders and narrow waist. His hair was meticulously styled, revealing a prominent forehead, and his features were profoundly sculpted, a true masterpiece of divine craftsmanship. Yet, his eyes were as dark as ink, unfathomable and reminiscent of a lurking predator, emanating an unsettling coldness that sent shivers down one's spine. It was Shinjin, even more formidable than described in the book. Su-won's heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively recoiled, her back pressed against the chill of the headboard. Behind Shinjin followed two burly bodyguards clad in black, their expressions stoic and foreboding, unmistakably intimidating. They positioned themselves beside the bed, like sentinels, causing the air in the ward to grow heavy with tension. Shinjin approached the bedside, halting his steps. He towered over her, casting a shadow that enveloped Su-won entirely. The man leaned slightly, his angular fingers gently lifting her chin, exerting just enough pressure to convey an undeniable sense of authority. Forced to meet his gaze, Su-won was drawn into the depths of his inscrutable eyes. His stare was piercing, as if it could penetrate her very soul, revealing every thought she harbored. Miss Su, Shinjin began, his voice deep and gravelly, akin to the lowest note of a cello, yet laced with an icy edge. For Gu Yanqin, you certainly take considerable risks. His tone dripped with unabashed mockery. Su Wan swallowed hard, her throat tightening, afraid to breathe too loudly. She could distinctly sense the fragrance emanating from him, subtle hints of cedar mixed with a trace of tobacco, cold and austere, yet laced with peril. Mr. Shun, I did not mean to, Su Wan stammered, her voice trembling, betraying her genuine fear. She harbored no doubt that should she utter a single misplaced word, this man would crush her jaw without hesitation. Shinjin raised an eyebrow, his fingertip lightly tracing her jawline, the sensation delicate and soft, exactly as she had imagined. His gaze fell upon her reddened eyes, shimmering with unshed tears, evoking an inexplicable pang of empathy within him. Did you not mean to? Shinjin repeated, his tone slightly rising with playful intrigue. Then, Miss Su, would you like to experience the consequences of intention? His fingertips pressed slightly harder, causing Su Wan to wince, tears spilling uncontrollably down her cheeks, falling onto the back of his hand. The warmth of her tears felt like an electric current coursing through Shunjin's being. His body stiffened at that moment. This was the first time a woman's tears had struck him so profoundly. Shinjin observed her tear-streaked face, her eyes filled with dread and helplessness, and the inexplicable irritation within him gradually dissipated. He had witnessed countless women weep, some feigning pity, others fabricating sorrow, and many attempting to elicit sympathy through tears. Yet, the tears of the woman before him were strikingly pure, akin to a string of pearls, each drop resonating in his heart. In an inexplicable turn of events, Shinjin released her. He straightened, looking down at her from his height, his voice still icy but softened with less hostility. Why are you crying? I have not harmed you. Su Wan sniffled, tears streaming more fiercely. She was not merely feeling wronged. She was terrified that it was a fear that penetrated to her very core. She understood all too well that Shunjin's decision not to kill her was not born of compassion, but rather from the realization that her existence was not worth his effort. Just as one would not bother to contend with an annoying ant. Shinjin regarded her tearful visage, his brow furrowing even deeper as he reached into his pocket, retrieving a finely crafted handkerchief scented faintly with cedar. Clumsily, he extended it, awkwardly attempting to dab at her cheeks, his movements stiff and mechanical. Stop crying. Shunjin's voice seemed to soften ever so slightly. Su Wan was taken aback, momentarily forgetting her tears. This ruthless antagonist was actually wiping her tears. That was not how it was written in the book. In the narrative, Shinjin harbored a deep-seated disdain for the original Su Wan, not only breaking her legs, but also causing the Su family to pay a grievous price. Ultimately, the original Su Wan was cast out, reduced to destitution, her fate tragically bleak. Could it be that her arrival had triggered a butterfly effect? System. Host. Shinjin's favorability is -20. His aversion level is off the charts. However, his recent behavior indicates that his impression of you differs from that of the original host. There is potential. The voice of the system resonated with a hint of excitement. Su-Wan rolled her eyes in disbelief. A favorability of -20, and yet there was talk of potential? This was undoubtedly a hellish beginning. Shinjin regarded her with a gaze that revealed a barely perceptible amusement. He tossed a handkerchief onto her bedside and spoke coldly. Once your injury has healed, remove yourself from my sight. Should I catch you engaging in such petty antics again, do not expect my courtesy. With that, he turned away without sparing her another glance. The hem of his black suit brushed through the air, stirring a chill. 2 bodyguards followed closely behind, and the hospital room door slammed shut with a resounding bang, cutting off the outside world. Only when the sound of footsteps had completely faded did Su-Wan feel as though all her strength had been drained. She collapsed onto the bed, gasping for breath. She glanced down at the handkerchief on her bedside, its pristine silk fabric adorned with the delicately embroidered character Jean, the tight stitching indicating its considerable value. Su-Wan picked up the handkerchief and held it to her nose, inhaling the faint scent of cedar, identical to that which lingered around Shinjin. Her heart began to race uncontrollably once more. To win over Shinjin, to prevent his descent into darkness, and to make him fall in love with her, Su-Wan bit her lip, a flicker of determination igniting in her gaze. Fear of losing herself? Not a chance. Wasn't it merely a matter of strategizing to win over a devoted partner? The book had clearly stated that Shinjin, in the later stages, was utterly devoted, his heart and mind consumed by the female lead. Although the female lead had now transformed into her, the essence remained unchanged. Su-Wan clenched the handkerchief tightly, her resolve unwavering. Wasn't it just a performance? She was all in. At that moment, the hospital room door creaked open again. A doctor clad in a white coat entered, accompanied by several nurses. The doctor approached the bedside, looking at Su-won with respect and stating, "Miss Su, President Shun has instructed us to take excellent care of you. This is the finest ward, and all expenses will be covered by President Shun." That Su-won was taken aback. Shinjin? Hadn't he just told her to leave? Why would he instruct the doctor to care for her? The doctor seemed to sense her confusion and smiled, explaining, "Though President Shun may appear cold, he possesses a kind heart. Just before he left, he specifically instructed us to ensure your leg heals completely, without any lingering effects." A storm of emotions surged within Su-won. She gazed out the window, sunlight streaming through the glass and warming the floor beneath, enveloping her in a gentle embrace. This ruthless male counterpart seemed somewhat different from her preconceived notions. That system. Ding. Detected Shin Jin's hidden concern. Favorability 1. Current favorability, -19. Host, keep it up. The mechanical voice chimed again, tinged with a hint of jubilation. Su-won looked at the handkerchief in her grasp, a smile unconsciously tugging at her lips. Perhaps this daunting task was not as insurmountable as it appeared. At the very least, she had taken the first step. What lay ahead was a gradual strategy, a meticulous approach to thaw this icy mountain, to transform him into a devoted partner, wholly hers. Chapter 2. An unexpected encounter. The sunlight in the ward gradually slanted towards the west, casting long shadows on the floor. Su-won clutched the handkerchief embroidered with the character Jean, her fingertips caressing the delicate silk fabric, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. The affection level had decreased from 20 to 19, though it seemed like a minor change. Only Su-won understood how arduous this step was. Who was Shinjin? He was the ruthless character capable of driving even his uncle to suicide, a man whose obsession rendered him apathetic towards the heroine Lin Weiwei in the books. For him to relent and provide medical expenses, even specifically instructing the doctor to treat her leg properly, was an unexpected development. System. Host, do not rejoice too soon. A level of 19 affection still falls within the realm of extreme disdain. Shinjin currently perceives you as a mere curiosity, akin to a cat daring to brush against a tiger's whiskers. Once his novelty wears off, he can easily dispose of you. The system's words doused Su-won's faint flicker of excitement like a bucket of cold water. Taking a deep breath, she folded the handkerchief and tucked it beneath her pillow. Indeed, novelty could only sustain her for so long. To genuinely win over Shinjin, tears and displays of weakness would be futile. She needed to discover his Achilles heel. The book stated that Shinjin's sole vulnerability was his grandmother. Grandma Shun was Shinjin's biological mother, who had raised him after the untimely death of his father and the remarriage of his mother. Later, when his uncle seized power, Grandma Shun was sent to a nursing home to gather the funds for her surgery. Shinjin humiliated himself by seeking help from those who had once mocked him. One could say that Grandma Shun was Shinjin's forbidden zone. To touch it was to invite death. However, the problem was that she had no desire to see Shinjin again, let alone approach his grandmother. "Miss Su, it's time for your dressing change." The nurse's voice interrupted Su-won's thoughts. She watched as the nurse unwrapped the bandages, revealing a gruesome wound on her leg, causing her to gasp in pain. "The doctor said you're recovering well. You'll be discharged in a week," the nurse added, smiling as she changed the dressing. "Mr. Shun has arranged everything differently. This imported medicine works wonders for swelling." Su-won forced a smile, remaining silent. A week until discharge. She needed to escape this place of turmoil swiftly. She dared not visit Shinjin's villa, and she had to sever all ties with Gu Yinqing. Ideally, she would find a location where neither Shinjin nor Gu Yinqing could locate her, allowing her to hide away quietly until her leg healed. Thus, the days passed in a bland monotony. Shinjin did not appear again, but every afternoon, his assistant would deliver a plethora of tonics, bird's nest, fish maw, cordyceps, filling her bedside cabinet with the most expensive brands on the market. Su-won gazed at these tonics, her heart a tumult of emotions. She understood that Shinjin didn't genuinely care for her. He likely felt a twinge of guilt, believing her leg was broken due to her attempt to extort him. After all, despite his ruthlessness, a hint of an unrecognizable moral code lay hidden within him. A week later, Su-won was discharged without her family from the Su clan coming to pick her up. She took a taxi back to a modest apartment under the original owner's name. The apartment was small, a one-bedroom unit adorned in warm tones, a stark contrast to the opulence of the Su family estate. It was evident that the original owner had grown weary of the treachery that plagued high society, prompting her to secretly acquire such a cozy nest. Su-won flopped onto the sofa, exhaling a long sigh of relief. Finally, she would no longer have to endure Shinjin's icy demeanor. The ensuing days were blissfully tranquil for Su-won. She indulged in dramas, read books, and occasionally ventured downstairs to buy groceries. Her life was peaceful and stable. She nearly forgot about the system until one afternoon when it suddenly blared an alarm. System alert. Alert. Grandma Shun has been detected within a 500-meter radius of the host. While munching on an apple and engrossed in a drama, Su-won nearly choked on the apple core upon hearing this news. What? Grandma Shun? How could she be here? System, according to the location data, Grandma Shun has escaped today without her bodyguards and is currently at the supermarket near the community entrance. Su-won's heart leaped into her throat. She raced downstairs, disregarding her leg pain, and dashed to the supermarket at the community entrance. There, amidst the crowd, she spotted the frail figure in the center. The elderly lady, clad in a gray qipao, with white hair, clutched her chest, leaning against the shelf, her face pale and breathing rapid. A circle of onlookers surrounded her, pointing and murmuring. Yet no one dared to approach. What was wrong with this lady? It seemed like she was having a heart attack. I don't know. She was fine just a moment ago. Suddenly, she clutched her chest and collapsed. Call 120. Su-won's heart raced as she squeezed through the crowd. Rushing to the elderly lady's side, she crouched down, her voice trembling as she asked, Grandma, how are you? The elderly lady barely opened her eyes and, upon seeing Su-won, her gaze flickered with confusion, followed by a painful frown. My chest hurts. Su-won, having learned first aid, knew that one must not move during a heart attack. She quickly supported the elderly lady, allowing her to lean against the shelf while loosening her collar to ensure her breathing remained unobstructed. Everyone, please step back and allow for air circulation. Su-won shouted to the crowd, her voice quivering slightly. Does anyone have a fast-acting heart pill? Please bring it out. Everyone around shook their heads, and Su-won's forehead broke into a sweat. The elderly lady's complexion grew increasingly pale, her breath shallower, and her lips began to turn purple. Grandma, hold on. The ambulance is on its way, Su-won said while pinching the elderly lady's acupoint, softly reassuring her, do not be afraid. I am here. The elderly lady stared weakly at her, her cracked lips moving as if to say something, but no sound emerged. At that moment, Su-won's hand brushed against the elderly lady's pocket, feeling something hard, akin to a small vial. A spark of hope ignited within her as she quickly pulled it out to discover it was indeed the fast-acting heart pill. Grandma, open your mouth. I'll feed you the medicine. Su-won carefully extracted 2 pills and gently administered them into the elderly lady's mouth, then sought a bottle of mineral water from a bystander, slowly helping her swallow it. The pills slid down her throat, and after about 2 minutes, the elderly lady's breathing began to stabilize, her complexion improving slightly. Su-won released a breath of relief, collapsing onto the ground, her back drenched in cold sweat. Those minutes felt like a brush with death. Just then, a flurry of hurried footsteps echoed from the supermarket entrance, accompanied by a man's suppressed roar. Grandma. Su-won's body froze instantly. She recognized that voice even if she turned to ashes. It was Shinjin. She lifted her head and followed the sound to see Shinjin rushing towards her like a madman, his black shirt collar torn open, his tie askew around his neck, hair disheveled, and the icy gaze that usually harbored no emotion was now filled with panic and urgency, resembling a wild beast out of control. A group of bodyguards in black followed closely behind, expertly dispersing the crowd to create space around them. Shinjin knelt beside the elderly lady, trembling as he grasped her hand, his voice quaking. Grandma, how are you? Are you all right? He held her hand with utmost gentleness, a stark contrast to the merciless Shinjin she had known. The elderly lady, upon seeing him, managed a weak smile, patting his hand. Jean, I'm fine. Thanks to this young lady. The elderly lady pointed towards Su-won. Shinjin's gaze followed her hand, and when his eyes met Su-won's, he appeared momentarily stunned, seemingly taken aback by the unexpected encounter. Su-won also stared back at him, her heart racing. She appeared disheveled, her hair in disarray, beads of sweat glistening on her face, and her knees painfully pressed against the cold floor, causing her to grimace. The two exchanged glances, enveloped in an eerie silence. Bystanders stood in stunned disbelief. Who among them was unaware that Shunzong was a ruthless character, indifferent to kinship? Yet, at this moment, the man knelt on the ground, gazing at the elderly lady with an expression so tender it could evoke tears. His gaze towards the young girl was even more intricate, shrouded in mystery. System ding. Shinjin's emotional fluctuations detected. Favorability increased by 5. Current favorability, 14. Host, you are remarkable. The system's voice brimmed with exuberance. Su-won's heart skipped a beat. An increase of 5 points? That was more than what she had achieved during her week at the hospital. Shinjin finally regained his composure. Standing tall and looking down at Suwon, sunlight streamed through the supermarket's glass windows, casting a golden glow upon his austere features. His eyes, still tinged with a hint of coldness, lacked the previous hostility. Was it you who saved my grandmother? Shinjin's voice was low and gravelly, laced with a barely perceptible rasp. Suwon nodded, rising to her feet, a sharp pain coursing through her leg, causing her to stumble slightly. Shinjin, quick to react, reached out to steady her arm. The warmth of his touch sent a jolt through her body, rendering her momentarily rigid. His palm was warm, roughened by calluses, and through her thin clothing, it radiated heat that made her skin tremble. Noticing her stiffness, Shinjin glanced down at her leg, his brow furrowing. Is your leg still not healed? Suwon hastily withdrew her hand, stepping back and shaking her head. It's nothing, just a minor injury. She dared not stand too close to him. His imposing aura was suffocating. Just then, the sound of an approaching ambulance broke the tension. Shinjin's assistant hurried over, respectfully stating, Shunzong, the ambulance has arrived. Shinjin nodded, bending down with great care to lift the elderly lady, his movements gentle as if handling a rare treasure. He approached Suwon, coming to a halt before her. Thank you for today, he said softly, yet distinctly. Suwon was momentarily taken aback, then shook her head. It was just a small effort, no need for thanks. Shinjin regarded her with a profound gaze, his dark eyes seemingly harboring emotions she could not decipher. My name is Shinjin, he introduced himself. Suwon's heart raced. Was he truly introducing himself? The Shinjin from the novels never divulged his name to those deemed insignificant. I know, she replied softly. Shinjin raised an eyebrow, seemingly surprised. He uttered no more, cradling the elderly lady and swiftly making his way towards the ambulance, with bodyguards trailing closely behind. Before departing, the assistant handed Suwon a business card. Miss Su, this is Shunzong's card, he said respectfully. He mentioned that you can contact him anytime should you need assistance. Suwon gazed at the embossed name on the card, her fingertips trembling slightly. She accepted the card, clenching it tightly in her hand, only releasing her breath once the sound of the ambulance faded away. She looked down at the card, her mind a whirlwind. What did Shinjin's gaze imply? Was it gratitude, curiosity, or something else entirely? System, host. Why are you in a daze? Favorability has risen to 14. This is a significant leap. At this rate, success in your pursuit is not far off. Suwon snapped back to reality, her eyes fixed on the numbers on the system panel, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Perhaps winning over Shinjin was indeed a possibility. She lifted her gaze to the sky, where the sun was slowly descending, painting half the horizon crimson. The evening breeze caressed her, carrying a chill, yet also a warmth named hope. Suwon tightened her grip on the business card, a faint smile unconsciously gracing her lips. Chapter 3. Unspoken affections clutching the gilded business card, Suwon returned to her apartment. The first thing she did was tuck it deep into her drawer. It was not her being overly sentimental. Rather, the mere mention of Shinjin held an intimidating power. Just the sight of his bold handwriting conjured memories of his fathomless eyes and the overwhelming pressure when he brushed his fingers against her chin, causing her heart to race uncontrollably. System, host, why are you hiding the card? It was given to you by Shinjin himself. It is a crucial tool for enhancing favorability. The system's voice echoed in her mind, filled with exasperation. Suwon slumped onto the sofa, rubbing her still sore leg, rolling her eyes. What do you know? Shinjin is not someone whose favors can be easily repaid. My saving his grandmother was mere coincidence. If I were to approach him with this card, he might suspect ulterior motives. She understood perfectly well that Shinjin was exceedingly wary. With him, one could only adopt a slow and steady approach. The following days passed uneventfully for Suwon. She spent her time watching dramas, rehabilitating her leg, and occasionally strolling in the park downstairs, leading a life that was deceptively tranquil. Until the 7th day, when her phone suddenly rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. Suwon hesitated before answering. A gentle male voice came through the line. May I speak with Miss Suwon? This is Chun, Shunzong's assistant. Suwon's heart skipped a beat. Hello, Assistant Chun. Is there something I can help you with? Indeed, Chun replied, maintaining his respectful tone. Madam Shin's health has significantly improved, and she has been expressing her desire to thank you. Shunzong would like to invite you to the nursing home tomorrow if you are available, as the elderly lady wishes to express her gratitude in person. Suwon tightened her grip on the phone. A visit to the nursing home? This was a splendid opportunity for direct interaction with Shun Laotai and an excellent chance to bolster Shunjin's favorability. Yet, the thought of facing Shinjin again filled her with trepidation. System host. An opportunity has arisen. Quickly agree. This is an invitation from Shun Laotai herself. And Shun Jin will be present. Favorability will surely soar. The system's voice was brimming with excitement. Taking a deep breath, Su-won quelled her anxiety. All right, I'll be there tomorrow. After hanging up, she nearly leaped off the sofa and dashed into her bedroom. She opened her wardrobe, rummaging through her clothes. Most of the original owner's outfits were high-end, either flamboyant reds or dazzling golds, unmistakably indicative of a pampered heiress. Furrowing her brow, she finally settled on a cream-colored knit sweater paired with light blue jeans, simple yet clean. The following morning, Su-won made a point of rising early. She opted for no makeup, merely applying a touch of lip balm, presenting a fresh-faced appearance. Assistant Chin's car was already waiting at the community entrance. The black Bentley exuded understated luxury, with both the driver and bodyguard clad in matching black suits, exuding an air of intimidation. As Su-won settled into the vehicle, she felt a flutter of nerves. The car glided smoothly along the road, arriving at the nursing home located on the outskirts of the city after approximately 40 minutes. The nursing home boasted an exquisite environment, nestled amidst mountains and water, shaded by lush trees, and the air was refreshingly crisp. The architecture within was European in style, elegant and refined, a clear indication that it was not a place for the ordinary. Assistant Chun guided Su-won inside, leading her through a path adorned with blooming roses. Arriving at a quaint building. Miss Su, please this way. Madam Shin and Shunzong are waiting for you inside. Su-won nodded, following Assistant Chun into the small building. The living room radiated warmth and elegance, with soft yellow lighting casting a cozy glow, enveloping her in comfort. Madam Shun sat on the sofa, a ball of yarn in her hands, busily knitting. Shinjin sat beside her, engrossed in a document. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bestowing a gentle golden hue upon his austere features. Upon hearing footsteps, Madam Shin looked up, her eyes instantly brightening upon seeing Su-won. Ah, Xiaowon has arrived. Come, take a seat. Madam Shin set aside the skein of yarn in her hands and warmly beckoned Su-won. Shinjin also raised his head, his gaze landing upon Su-won. She donned a cream-colored knitted sweater that accentuated her porcelain skin, while denim jeans hugged her slender legs. Her hair was loosely gathered at the back, revealing a smooth forehead. The entire ensemble rendered her appearance pristine and gentle, akin to a gardenia untouched by dust. Shinjin's gaze faltered slightly, and he instinctively swallowed hard. He had encountered many facets of Su-won, disheveled, tearful, and obstinate, but never had he seen her in such a light. She was so enchanting that it was difficult to look away. Su-won approached the sofa and offered a polite smile. Grandma, hello. Good, 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 Madam Shin exclaimed, grasping her hand and beaming widely. Please, take a seat. I am so grateful you saved me that day. Otherwise, I fear my old life might have ended in the supermarket. Su-won quickly waved her hand. Grandma, you are too kind. It is merely what I ought to do. What ought to be done? Madam Shin shot her a look. Nowadays, young people would rather flee than assist in such situations. You, my dear, have a kind heart. Madam Shun continued to hold Su-won's hand, rambling on about her youth and Shun-jin's childhood, her eyes brimming with affection. Su-won listened patiently, nodding in response and occasionally uttering a few words to amuse the elder, eliciting hearty laughter from her. Shun-jin sat silently beside them, holding a document but not absorbing a single word. His gaze was fixed on Su-won, observing her radiant smile and her patient demeanor as she engaged with the elderly woman, filling him with an inexplicable sense of comfort. This was the first time he experienced such vibrant energy in this nursing home. Previously, it had been quiet, merely him and his grandmother, the air heavy with solitude. However, since Su-won's arrival, the entire living room had transformed into a lively space. Ah, Xiaowon, how is your leg doing? Madam Shin suddenly recalled, her concern evident. I noticed you limping the other day. Is it any better now? Su-won smiled. Much improved. Thank you for your concern, Grandma. That is wonderful to hear. Madam Shin nodded, then turned to glare at Shinjin. It's all your fault, you rascal. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have broken her leg. Shinjin raised his head, meeting Su-won's gaze, a hint of barely noticeable remorse flickering in his eyes. I apologize. Su-won was taken aback, not expecting such an apology from him. She promptly shook her head. It is not your fault. I was careless. Madam Shun observed their exchange, a glint of mischief dancing in her eyes. She patted Su-won's hand. Xiaowon, if you do not mind, please come and keep this old lady company more often. It gets terribly dull here, all alone. Su-won's heart leaped with joy. This was precisely what she had wished for. She nodded eagerly. Of course, Grandma. I will visit you often. Splendid. Madam Shin beamed. I shall go have the kitchen prepare your favorite dishes." As she spoke, she rose and made her way to the kitchen. In an instant, only Su-won and Shun-jin remained in the living room. A slight, awkward silence enveloped the air. Su-won lowered her head, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the hem of her clothes, unsure of what to say. Shun-jin set aside his documents, gazing at her as he broke the silence. "Does your leg still hurt?" Su-won lifted her head, her eyes colliding with his profound gaze, her heart skipping a beat. "No, it no longer hurts." Shun-jin nodded, remaining silent. He stood and walked to the window, observing the blooming roses outside, his silhouette tall yet solitary. Su-won gazed at his back, a wave of inexplicable sympathy washing over her. The books had mentioned that Shun-jin endured a difficult childhood. His uncle's usurpation forced him and his grandmother into a life of hardship. His harsh demeanor was merely a shield to protect himself and his grandmother. After a moment of hesitation, Su-won stood and approached him. "Mr. Shun," she softly remarked while looking at the roses, "the flowers here are truly beautiful." Shun-jin turned to look at her. The sunlight cascaded upon her face, her long lashes fluttering gently like a butterfly poised to take flight. "Grandma adores flowers." Shun-jin's voice was deep and husky, tinged with an almost imperceptible warmth. Su-won smiled. "Grandma is indeed a gentle soul." Shun-jin's gaze lingered on her face, unwavering. He recalled that day in the supermarket when she knelt beside his grandmother, anxiously calling out for her to hold on. He remembered her carefulness when administering medicine to her grandmother. He thought of her now, standing beside him with a radiant smile. Somewhere in his heart, it felt as though something had brushed against him softly, gentle and warm. Suddenly, a notification chimed in his mind. Ding. Shun-jin's affection level has risen. Favorability 3. Current favorability 11. Host, keep it up. Su-won's heart raced at that moment. She met Shun-jin's gaze, their eyes intertwining in the air. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, enveloping them in a soft, golden hue. The fragrance of roses wafted through the air, sweet and warm. Time seemed to stand still in that instant. Then, Madame Shun's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Xiaowon. Ajin. It's time for dinner." Both of them snapped back to reality, awkwardly averting their eyes. Su-won's cheeks flushed slightly. She quickly turned and headed towards the kitchen. "Grandma, let me help you." Shun-jin watched her retreating figure, a hint of a smile flickering in his eyes. This woman seemed to differ somewhat from what he had envisioned. The dining table was laden with an abundance of dishes. Madame Shun persistently filled Su-won's bowl until it resembled a small mountain. "Xiaowon, eat more. You are too thin." "Thank you, Grandma," Su-won replied with a smile, eagerly digging in. Shun-jin observed her voracious appetite, a smile unconsciously tugging at the corner of his mouth. He seldom witnessed anyone being so unreserved in his presence. Most people were cautious, fearful of saying the wrong thing or making a mistake. Yet, Su-won seemed utterly unafraid of him. After the meal, Su-won accompanied Madame Shun in the living room to watch television. As the show progressed, Madame Shun leaned back against the sofa and dozed off. Su-won cautiously stood, intending to cover the elder with a blanket. Just as she picked up the blanket, she noticed Shun-jin approaching. He gestured for silence, indicating that she should not speak. Su-won nodded and held her breath. Shun-jin gently lifted the elderly woman, his movements tender beyond measure. He carried her toward the bedroom, treading lightly as though to avoid waking her. Su-won watched his retreating figure, feeling a warmth in her heart. This seemingly ruthless man possessed such a tender side. After settling Madame Shun, Shun-jin returned. "The old lady is asleep. If you have matters to attend to, you may leave," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "All right." Su-won nodded. "I shall come to visit Grandma another day." Shun-jin nodded, remaining silent. He escorted Su-won to the door, where Assistant Shun awaited her outside. As Su-won entered the car, she waved at Shun-jin. "Mr. Shun, goodbye." Shun-jin met her gaze, nodding, "Goodbye." As the car slowly departed, Su-won turned to glance at Shun-jin, standing at the door. His figure appeared particularly solitary in the glow of the setting sun. An inexplicable ache stirred within Su-won's heart. Suddenly, another notification chimed. Ding. Favorability 2. Current favorability 9. Host, you are doing splendidly. Su-won was momentarily taken aback. Then a smile blossomed on her face. 9. She was one step closer to success. As the car traveled along the road, Su-won gazed out at the scenery, an involuntary smile gracing her lips. Perhaps winning over Shun-jin was not as daunting as she had imagined. At the very least, she had successfully taken a small step into his heart. As Shun-jin stood at the entrance, his gaze lingered on the departing vehicle until it vanished from sight. His fingertips trembled slightly, his mind flooded with images of Su-won's radiant smile. Assistant Shun approached respectfully, inquiring, "Mr. Shun, shall we proceed inside?" Shinjin shook his head, his eyes still fixed on the direction the car had taken. No need. His voice was deep and gravelly, laced with a hint of barely perceptible tenderness. This woman seemed intriguing, he mused. He wouldn't mind her visiting his grandmother more often, and perhaps spending more time with him as well. Chapter 4. Jealousy surges since that visit to the rehabilitation center. Su-won had discerned the nuances of winning Shunjin's favor, tactfully focusing on his grandmother. She frequently made trips to the center, sometimes bringing freshly baked cookies, other times carrying seasonal fruits, and occasionally an old magazine to share with the elderly lady while they basked in the sun, chatting and knitting. The elderly woman, already fond of the girl who had saved her life, began to regard Su-won as a cherished granddaughter. Consequently, she often spoke of her to Shinjin. This child, Xiao-won, is so wonderful, gentle, and understanding. If you have no intentions towards her, do not hinder her. Each time Shinjin heard these words, he would respond nonchalantly. Yet his gaze would invariably drift towards Su-won. Aware of this unspoken tension, Su-won never approached him directly. She maintained a delicate balance, ensuring that Shinjin did not perceive her intentions as ulterior, while also managing to catch his attention now and then. It was a Friday when Su-won, just off work, was halted by her colleague Lin Hao. Su-won, wait a moment. Lin Hao, holding a gift box and smiling bashfully, said, My mother sent some local specialties from our hometown. I know you enjoy these kinds of snacks, so I thought I'd share. Lin Hao was a contemporary of Su-won, cheerful in disposition, and they often engaged in casual banter at the office. Su-won hesitated momentarily before shaking her head. Oh, you really don't have to. It's too much trouble. Come on, no need for pleasantries, Lin Hao insisted, placing the gift box into her hands. It's nothing expensive, just a little treat. By the way, doesn't your home lie in that nearby community? Let me give you a ride. Glancing at the gift box and then at the darkening sky, Su-won nodded, acknowledging the lateness of the hour. That would be great, thank you. As they exited the office building side by side, the sunsets stretched their shadows long. Lin Hao chatted animatedly about amusing incidents at work, with Su-won listening intently, laughing occasionally. Unbeknownst to her, in a black Bentley across the street, Shinjin's expression grew increasingly somber. He had come to pick Su-won up, eager for her to taste the braised pork his grandmother had been raving about. However, upon his arrival, he witnessed the scene unfolding before him, seeing Su-won's beaming profile. Watching as that man handed her the gift box, and noting how close they were standing, ignited a fire within Shinjin's chest. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles whitening, as a cold fury simmered in his eyes. Assistant Shun, seated beside him, dared not utter a word, having never before witnessed such an expression from his boss. The intensity of Shinjin's gaze seemed capable of devouring the man outside whole. Mr. Shun, Assistant Shun ventured cautiously, would you like to call Miss Su? Shinjin remained silent, his focus unwaveringly trained on the scene outside. It was not until Lin Hao had escorted Su-won to the entrance of her community, tousling her hair playfully, that Shinjin's demeanor darkened further. He flung open the car door and strode towards them with purpose. Su-won was in the midst of bidding farewell to Lin Hao when she heard the unmistakable sound of familiar footsteps behind her, causing her heart to skip a beat. Turning, she found Shinjin standing a short distance away, his expression ominously dark. The fading sunlight illuminated him, yet failed to dispel the chill that enveloped him. Dressed in a tailored black suit, he exuded an imposing stature, his icy gaze reminiscent of a figure emerging from a frost-laden abyss. Su-won's heart raced, instinctively taking a step back. Lin Hao, sensing the tension, glanced at Shinjin, perplexed. Su-won, who is this? Before Su-won could respond, Shinjin had swiftly reached her side, pulling her protectively behind him. He looked down at Lin Hao, his icy demeanor sharp enough to freeze. And you are? Lin Hao, taken aback by the authoritative aura, stammered, I'm Su-won's colleague, Lin Hao. Colleague, Shinjin scoffed, his gaze narrowing on Lin Hao's hand resting on Su-won's head, his voice dripping with disdain. Do colleagues escort each other home and pet each other's heads? Lin Hao's face flushed, and he quickly withdrew his hand. I just thought Su-won's hair looked a bit messy today. Her hair's tidiness is none of your concern. Shinjin replied coldly, his voice frigid. Keep your distance from her. Lin Hao, rendered speechless, cast an awkward glance at Su-won before hastily retreating. I suppose I should be going then. Watching Lin Hao's retreating figure and then turning to face the brooding Shinjin, Su-won felt a mix of amusement and disbelief. This man was undoubtedly displaying his jealousy quite overtly. Mr. Shun, what brings you here? Su-won inquired cautiously, wary of provoking his ire. Shinjin turned his gaze upon her, his eyes still icy, yet a trace of unrecognized vulnerability flickered within. Are you quite familiar with him? Su-won faltered briefly. quickly realizing he meant Lin Hao, and shook her head vigorously. We're just ordinary colleagues. He merely offered me a ride home. Ordinary colleagues? Shinjin raised an eyebrow, his gaze landing on the gift box in her hands, his tone laced with envy. Do ordinary colleagues bring each other gifts? Peering down at the gift box, Su-won felt a mixture of exasperation and amusement. It's merely some local specialties. It's nothing significant. Nothing significant? Shinjin reached out, snatching the gift box from her hands and tossing it into a nearby trash bin. You are not to accept gifts from other men going forward. But that was handmade by his mother. What a waste to throw it away. Su-won exclaimed, observing Shinjin's petulant behavior, surprisingly finding it somewhat endearing. Was this what they referred to as the wife brain in novels? Even before it fully awakened, he was already so jealous? System ding. Detected Shinjin's jealousy levels at an all-time high. Affection points, 5. Current affection points, 4. Host, victory is within reach. Su-won's heart raced, exhilarated by the unexpected increase. 5 points, a remarkable leap. Gazing at Shinjin's dark profile, she summoned her courage and tugged at his sleeve. Mr. Shun, please don't be upset. I won't accept gifts anymore. Shinjin's body stiffened momentarily. He glanced down at her delicate, pale hand gripping his sleeve, feeling an inexplicable pull of warmth. The fire of his earlier anger dissipated significantly. Turning to her, he noticed the blush on her cheeks, his expression softening considerably. Is your leg better? Can you walk? Su-won nodded. Much improved. I can walk without any issues. That is good. Shinjin took hold of her wrist with a firm, yet gentle grip. Grandmother is waiting for you at the rehabilitation center. She's prepared your favorite braised pork. The warmth of his hand enveloped her wrist, igniting a heat in her cheeks. She could distinctly feel the warmth radiating from his palm, the roughness of his fingertips, and the commanding yet tender grip he had on her, an undeniable force that was simultaneously careful. Mr. Shun, this seems unnecessary, Su-won murmured softly. Not at all, he replied, his voice low and raspy, tinged with a subtle softness. Grandmother misses you. In truth, he missed her. Since their last encounter at the rehabilitation center, she had become a constant presence in his thoughts, her radiant smile, the patience she exhibited while conversing with his grandmother, and the way she carefully handed him water. He found himself looking forward to the weekly visits to the rehabilitation center, for it was the only place where he could openly see her. The two individuals walked in silence to the side of the Bentley. Shinjin opened the door of the passenger seat and gentlemanly assisted her into the vehicle. As Su-won settled in, she noticed Shinjin retrieving a bag from the back seat, extending it towards her. What is this? Su-won inquired, her brow furrowed in curiosity. For you, Shinjin replied, a faint blush tinging his ears, revealing a hint of shyness. You mentioned you liked the pineapple cakes from the shop in Qingxi, so I had assistant Shin buy some. Su-won was taken aback. She recalled casually mentioning the deliciousness of those cakes during a conversation with the elderly lady at the sanatorium. She never expected him to remember. Taking the bag, she opened it to find the exquisite pineapple cakes from that renowned establishment, their enticing aroma wafting through the air. Thank you, Mr. Shun, Su-won said, warmth flooding her heart as a smile unconsciously graced her lips. Shinjin gazed at her smile, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. He started the car, his voice deep and husky. No need to thank me. The vehicle glided smoothly down the road, the golden hues of the sunset streaming through the windows, casting a gentle glow upon the two of them. Su-won, seated in the passenger seat, savored the cakes while observing Shinjin's focused profile as he drove, feeling an inexplicable sense of peace. Although he appeared ruthless and obsessive, beneath it all, he harbored a subtle tenderness. Suddenly, she recalled the plot from the book, where Shinjin, unable to win the protagonist's love, ultimately succumbed to darkness, leading to the downfall of both their families, with his own demise in the flames. Su-won glanced at the man beside her, silently vowing to succeed in her quest to win his heart, to prevent his descent into darkness, and to transform him into a devoted partner who loved only her. Before long, they arrived at the sanatorium. Grandma Shun had been waiting at the entrance, and her eyes lit up upon seeing the two of them alight from the vehicle. Xiaowan is here. Come in quickly. The braised pork has just been finished, and it smells divine. The elderly lady grasped Su-won's hand, enthusiastically ushering her inside, turning back to glare at Shinjin. You rascal, what are you dawdling for? Hurry and bring in Xiaowan's things. Shinjin chuckled helplessly, bending down to retrieve Su-won's bag from the car, swiftly following her inside. At the dining table, the braised pork glistened invitingly, its aroma filling the air. The elderly lady persistently served Su-won, piling her bowl high with food. Xiaowan, eat more. This pork has been stewed for 3 hours. It's incredibly tender and won't get stuck in your teeth. Thank you, Grandma, Suwon replied with a smile. Digging into the meal, Shinjin watched her relish each bite, a smile creeping onto his lips. He picked up his chopsticks and served her a piece of marbled pork. Try this, it's the best. Suwon looked up, meeting his gaze, her cheeks warming slightly. She nodded, placing the meat in her mouth, savoring its soft, sweet, and melt-in-your-mouth texture. Delicious. Suwon's eyes sparkled. Shinjin, observing her delight, felt a deeper warmth in his heart. The elderly lady watched their interaction, her smile wide with satisfaction, knowing that her grandson had finally met someone who could melt his heart. After dinner, Suwon accompanied Grandma Shun in the living room to watch television. Shinjin sat nearby, engrossed in his laptop, handling work matters. The television displayed a cliché romance drama, which Grandma Shun watched with great interest, while Suwon began to feel drowsy. She yawned and leaned back on the sofa, gradually falling asleep. When she awoke, she found herself leaning against Shunjin's shoulder. The scent of cedar enveloped her senses, warm and comforting. Suwon's cheeks flushed instantly, and she straightened up. I'm sorry. I dozed off. Shinjin turned to her, his gaze gentle. It's all right. If you're tired, just sleep a little longer. His voice was deep and husky, laced with a barely perceptible tenderness. Unbeknownst to them, Grandma Shun had retreated to her room, leaving just the two of them in the living room. Moonlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a serene and beautiful glow upon them. Suwon gazed at Shinjin's profile, her heart racing. Suddenly recalling the system's task and his rising affection level, she mustered her courage and quietly asked, Mr. Shun, what do you think of me? Shinjin turned to her. Noticing the blush on her cheeks, a flicker of amusement in his eyes, he reached out, gently tousling her hair, his voice low and husky. Very good. So good that I can't bear to let go. So good that he wished to keep her hidden from the world. Suwon's heart skipped a beat. She gazed into his profound eyes, seeing the warmth within, her heart racing like a frightened rabbit. System ding. Detected a surge in Shun Jin's affection. Current affection level 4. Host, you are remarkable. Suwon's eyes brightened instantly. A level of 0. She had finally escaped the negative. She looked at Shinjin, her lips curving into a radiant smile. Shinjin, witnessing her joy, felt his own smile deepen. He knew he had completely succumbed, enchanted by the girl named Suwon. Chapter 5. Step by step into captivation. On the night when her affection level reset to 0, Suwon was personally escorted back to her apartment by Shinjin. The car came to a stop downstairs, the Bentley's headlights casting warm yellow beams into the night. Suwon unbuckled her seatbelt and was about to push open the door when Shinjin called out to her. Suwon. His voice was lower than usual, imbued with a husky timbre colored by the night. Suwon turned her head, meeting his fathomless gaze, which held emotions deeper than the moonlight that night. What is it, Mr. Shun? She asked, gripping the hem of her clothes, her heartbeat racing faster than the speed of the car. Shinjin remained silent, merely extending his hand, his fingertips brushing lightly against her hair. Earlier, while she slept against his shoulder at the sanatorium, her hair had brushed against his neck, sending shivers down his spine. Now, the softness of her hair against his fingers felt like feathers, teasing his heart. The security in your building isn't very good, he suddenly spoke. Glancing at the flickering streetlight beneath the apartment building, his brow furrowed slightly. And it's far from the company, requiring you to leave early for work. Suwon was momentarily taken aback, not expecting him to bring this up. She lived in an old neighborhood left behind by the original owner. And while the security was indeed average and the commute took 40 minutes, it was peaceful and distanced from the dramas of the affluent. I'm used to it, she replied with a smile, attempting to lift her bag. However, Shinjin pressed down on her wrist, his grip gentle yet firm, imbued with an undeniable certainty. Move in with me. Suwon's breath caught in her throat, as if she had been struck by a spell. She stared at him wide-eyed, doubting her ears. Move in with you? Alone together in a room? Isn't this progressing too quickly? System. Host. Cohabitation. This is a golden opportunity to boost affection. Quick. Agree. Accepting will definitely increase your affection level. The system screamed in her mind, but Suwon felt her scalp tingle. She understood Shinjin's nature all too well, possessive, domineering, and fiercely protective. With her affection level barely at 0, agreeing to cohabitation would mean being under his watchful eye constantly. Mr. Shun, this may not be appropriate. She attempted to retract her hand, her voice tense. We aren't close enough for that. Shinjin's gaze fell on her flushed ears, a hint of amusement flickering in his eyes. He enjoyed seeing her flustered and uncertain, like a startled little rabbit, evoking both a desire to tease her and a need to protect her. There's nothing inappropriate about it. He released her hand but retrieved a bag from the back seat, handing it to her. Grandma said the air at the sanatorium is nice and wants you to spend more time with her. My place is close to the sanatorium, just a 10-minute drive. Inside the bag was a brand new set of women's pajamas, a creamy white color, faintly scented with gardenia, clearly prepared with care. Suwon stared at the sleepwear, her heart growing even more tumultuous. This is not Grandma's intention, it is clearly his own idea. Indeed, Old Lady Shun has mentioned wanting her to visit more often. But she never suggested that she should move in. Mr. Shun, I consider it a favor. Shinjin interrupted her, his tone softening slightly, infused with a sincerity she had never heard before. Grandma is getting older and needs someone by her side. She likes you, and seeing you brightens her mood immensely. His words struck a chord with Suwon. Old Lady Shun truly treated her well, like a beloved granddaughter, always inquiring about her well-being and secretly slipping her pocket money. Suwon genuinely cherished the kind-hearted elderly woman and was willing to accompany her. Moreover, the system incessantly buzzed in her ear. Host. Seize the opportunity. You must not let it slip away. Think about it. After cohabiting, dining together, taking walks, stargazing, won't the affection come naturally? Suwon bit her lip, gazing into Shun Jin's expectant eyes, as her internal scales gradually tipped. She understood this was an essential path to winning him over, the best shortcut. All right, the single word, as light as a feather, instantly illuminated Shun Jin's eyes. It was a childlike exuberance, a stark contrast to his usual cold demeanor. Suwon watched the corners of his mouth twitch upward, and her heart softened unexpectedly. It turned out this icy man could exhibit such a vibrant side. Early the next morning, Assistant Shun arrived with 2 servants to help Suwon pack her belongings. Her luggage was minimal, just a few clothes, some books, and a handkerchief embroidered with the character Jean. The servants efficiently packed her items into a suitcase without requiring her assistance. Shun Jin's villa was located on the outskirts of the city, a standalone European-style manor surrounded by blooming roses, with a faint floral fragrance permeating the air. As the car drove through the gates, Suwon couldn't help but marvel. This was not merely a villa, it resembled a castle. The living room featured a soaring design, dazzling crystal chandeliers, and imported marble floors that gleamed. Yet, strangely, such a vast space did not feel cold at all. Rather, it exuded warmth. The sofa was adorned with pink cushions, the coffee table displayed fresh fruits, and the refrigerator was filled with her favorite strawberry milk. Even the walk-in closet had been deliberately left half-empty, with pristine hangers awaiting her clothes. Observing all this, Suwon felt a warmth in her heart. She could imagine Shinjin's careful arrangements as he set this up. Do you like it? Shinjin's voice sounded from behind her. Suwon turned to see him holding a cup of warm milk, smiling at her. I do, she nodded, genuinely expressing her gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Shun. Shinjin approached, handing her the milk, his fingertips inadvertently brushing against her hand, causing her to recoil slightly from the warmth. Call me Shinjin. He gazed into her eyes, his tone earnest. It's fine to call me Mr. Shin outside, but at home, call me Shinjin. Suwon's cheeks lightly flushed as she softly said, Shinjin. The 2 syllables seemed to possess a magical quality, instantly filling his eyes with delight. He reached out, ruffling her hair with an unexpectedly tender gesture. Good girl. As Suwon cradled the warm milk, her heart raced as if it might leap from her chest. The days of cohabitation proved to be far more pleasant than she had anticipated. Shinjin was not as domineering as she had imagined. On the contrary, he was surprisingly considerate. He knew she enjoyed sleeping in and would have the kitchen delay breakfast by half an hour. He was aware of her fondness for spicy food and would request the chef to prepare various spicy dishes each day. He noticed she could easily cry while watching dramas and would silently offer her tissues, clumsily assuring her that the plot was merely fictional. His work was demanding, often requiring his attention to company matters, yet whenever he had a moment to spare, he would be by her side. He accompanied her while watering the flowers in the garden, curled up with her on the sofa while watching dramas, and visited the nursing home to see Grandma. Suwon realized that Shinjin was not at all fierce. He simply struggled to express himself. He would become frantic when she had a fever in the middle of the night, personally driving her to the hospital and staying by her side all night. He would awkwardly learn to make ginger tea with brown sugar when she had her period. Though the taste was somewhat peculiar, it warmed her heart. He would quietly transfer money into her account when she fretted over bills, stubbornly insisting it was pocket money from Grandma. One evening, after working late, Suwon returned home close to 10 o'clock. The living room lights were still on, and Shinjin sat on the sofa, holding a document, yet seemingly distracted. Upon hearing the door open, he immediately looked up, his fatigue replaced by a smile. You're back? He stood up, taking her back. Are you hungry? The kitchen has prepared a late-night snack for you. Suwon nodded, too exhausted to muster the energy to speak. Following him into the dining room, She found a bowl of steaming shrimp wontons that smelled delightful. Hurry and eat, they were just heated. Shinjin sat across from her, watching her devour the food, a smile unconsciously tugging at his lips. After a couple of bites, Suwon suddenly recalled something and raised her gaze to him. Haven't you eaten yet? Shinjin shook his head. I was waiting for you. Suwon's heart fluttered as if something had gently nudged it. She scooped a wonton and held it to his lips. You should eat too. Shinjin's gaze deepened. Without hesitation, he opened his mouth and consumed the wonton. The fresh flavor of the shrimp mingled with the warmth of her fingertips, spreading sweetness through him. They sat at the dining table, the warm yellow light casting a glow on their profiles, creating an atmosphere of undeniable warmth. After finishing their late-night snack, Suwon went to take a shower. When she emerged wrapped in a towel, she found Shinjin standing at the bedroom door, holding one of her pajamas. Just dried. Wear this so you don't catch a chill. He handed her the robe, his eyes landing on her damp hair, brows slightly furrowing. Your hair isn't dry. You'll catch a headache. Saying this, he turned and walked into the bathroom, retrieving the hairdryer and plugging it in. Come here, I'll help you dry it. Suwon was taken aback. She had never allowed anyone to help her with her hair before. Hesitating, she approached and sat on the edge of the bed. Shinjin stood behind her, the warm air from the dryer wafting towards her, carrying a faint scent of cedarwood. His fingers wove through her hair with an astonishing gentleness, as if afraid to hurt her. Leaning against the headboard, Suwon closed her eyes, savoring the warmth of his touch, her heart enveloped in tranquility. The hum of the hairdryer filled the room, the moonlight outside shone brightly, and the fragrance of roses drifted through the window, sweet and warm. She suddenly felt that these days were rather delightful. If it weren't for the system's task, if it weren't for the book she had entered, perhaps she would genuinely fall in love with this man. The dryer ceased its sound, and Shinjin set it down, his fingertips brushing against her dried hair. All done. His voice was low and husky, tinged with a barely perceptible tenderness. Suwon opened her eyes and turned her head, meeting his profound gaze. The emotions swirling within his eyes were thick and palpable. Moonlight illuminated his face, highlighting his chiseled features while softening his brow. Suwon's heart skipped a beat. She gazed at his face, so close, observing his slightly pursed lips, and, driven by an inexplicable impulse, rose on her toes. Just as their lips were about to meet, Shinjin's phone abruptly rang. The jarring ringtone shattered the intimate atmosphere of the bedroom. Shinjin frowned, glancing at his phone, his expression darkening instantly. It was a call from the remnants of his uncle's faction. These people were relentless, always finding ways to create trouble for him. I need to take this call. His voice turned cold as he swiftly exited the bedroom. Suwon watched his retreating figure, the flutter of her heart extinguished in an instant. She understood that Shinjin's world was far more complicated than it appeared. He bore an overwhelming burden upon his shoulders, the remnants of his uncle's power, the subtle and overt struggles within the company, and the shadows of a past long sealed away. These were realms she could neither reach nor avoid. The system spoke with indignation in her mind. Host, you were almost kissed just now. So close. It infuriates me. That wretched phone could have rung at any moment. Yet, Suwon merely sighed, leaning against the headboard, gazing out at the moonlight, her heart a tumult of mixed emotions. The endeavor to strategize against Shinjin and prevent his descent into darkness proved far more arduous than she had anticipated. Meanwhile, Shinjin stood on the balcony, listening to the threats emanating from the other end of the line, the coldness in his eyes threatening to overflow. Shinjin, do not rejoice too soon. We will not spare you. And that woman, Suwon, you better keep a close watch on her. The voice on the line was venomous and malicious, causing Shinjin's fist to clench tightly, his knuckles turning pale. He raised his head towards the bedroom, the chill in his gaze swiftly replaced by a seething rage. Whoever dared to lay a finger on his Suwon would pay a grievous price. After hanging up, Shinjin inhaled deeply, suppressing the fury within. He stepped into the bedroom, finding Suwon leaning against the headboard, her eyes a bit dazed. He approached her, sitting beside her, and wrapped her in his embrace. Do not be afraid, he murmured, his voice deep and hoarse, laced with a barely perceptible tremor. With me here, no one can harm you. Nestled in his arms, Suwon listened to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and a sudden sense of calm enveloped her. She lifted her gaze to meet his eyes and softly asked, Shinjin, will you protect me? He met her gaze with unwavering determination. I will. Those 3 words resonated with certainty. Suwon smiled, extending her arms to hold him tightly. She realized that from that moment onward, they were inseparable. Regardless of the system's tasks or the sinister machinations at play, she would stand by him, facing everything together. Because it seemed she had genuinely begun to harbor feelings for this man, both ruthless and tender. The system chimed in with excitement. Ding. Host affection value has increased. Shinjin's favorability level, 5. Current favorability level, 5. Host, keep it up. However, Suwon paid no heed to the system's exuberance. She nestled against Shinjin, relishing his warmth, a faint smile gracing her lips. Perhaps this strategic game had never been solely her manipulation from the outset, but rather a gradual descent for both of them. Chapter 6. The overprotective husband emerges. The warmth of his beloved companion gradually eased Shinjin's tense nerves. He lowered his gaze to Suwon's delicate hair. Gently caressing the crown of her head, the fierceness in his eyes replaced entirely by tenderness. Sleep, he whispered, his voice soothing. With me here, you have nothing to fear. Suwon murmured an affirmation, snuggling closer to him, the familiar scent of cedar enveloping her, a sense of safety spreading through her entire being. That night, Shinjin hardly slept at all. He sat on the edge of the bed, holding Suwon, his phone screen flickering incessantly with messages from Assistant Chun, all detailing investigations into his uncle's lingering influence. Those individuals had been lurking for so long, clearly aiming for Suwon, intending to use her as leverage to coerce Shinjin into surrendering the core projects of the Shin family. Shinjin's eyes grew colder with each passing moment. Throughout his life, he had faced countless storms. He had deftly navigated his uncle's schemes and the cutthroat nature of the business world. Yet, Suwon was his Achilles heel. The one vulnerability he would protect at all costs. Anyone who dared to target her would face dire consequences. The following morning, the tantalizing aroma wafting from the kitchen roused Suwon from slumber. Rubbing her eyes, she emerged from the bedroom to find Shinjin, adorned in an apron, standing at the stove, clumsily flipping vegetables with a spatula in hand. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a serene glow upon him, creating an illusion of tranquil time. Awake? Shinjin turned at the sound of her footsteps, a smile evident in his eyes. Almost done. I'm making your favorite sweet and sour pork. Suwon was taken aback. She recalled Shinjin as a consummate workaholic, too absorbed in his duties to even contemplate cooking. How did you learn this? Shinjin's ears tinged with a hint of crimson as he turned back, somewhat bashful. Assistant Chun provided the recipe. It's not difficult. Suwon felt as if her heart had been warmed by gentle water, softening her resolve. She approached him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. Shinjin stiffened momentarily but soon relaxed, intertwining his fingers with hers, a deeper smile gracing his lips. Don't make a fuss. The oil might splatter and burn you. I won't fuss, Suwon replied, pressing her face against his back, her voice muffled. Shinjin, thank you. Thank you for sheltering me beneath your wings. Thank you for giving me warmth I have never known. Shinjin's heart felt as though it had been struck by something profound. He turned off the heat, pivoted to face her, and pulled her into his embrace, gently kissing her forehead. Silly girl, why are you being so polite? Their breakfast was filled with warmth and sweetness. The sweet and sour pork he prepared may not have looked perfect, but the taste was surprisingly delightful. Suwon devoured a generous bowl, feeling pleasantly full. Shinjin gazed at her round belly, unable to suppress a chuckle, reaching out to ruffle her hair. Eat slowly, no one is competing with you. Suwon pouted, about to retort, when her phone abruptly rang. It was a colleague from the company, speaking urgently. Suwon, you need to come to the office right away. President Gu is here, asking for you. Gu Yanchen? Suwon's heart sank. How had she forgotten about him? The original owner harbored an infatuation for Gu Yanchen for years, even going so far as to create trouble for Shinjin in pursuit of him. Now that she had grown so close to Shinjin, Gu Yanchen would undoubtedly not take it lightly. Shinjin's expression turned icy in an instant. He regarded Suwon with concern. I'll accompany you. No, it's fine. I can manage on my own. Suwon hesitated, not wanting him to follow and provoke further conflict. No, Shinjin's tone left no room for rejection. Gu Yanchen is shrewd. I'm not at ease. Unable to argue further, Suwon reluctantly nodded in agreement. The car swiftly arrived at the company building. Shinjin did not accompany her inside but stood by the car, gazing into her eyes with a serious tone. Call me if anything happens. I'll be waiting downstairs. All right. Suwon nodded, feeling a warmth in her heart. Upon entering the company, Suwon sensed something amiss. Her colleagues regarded her with peculiar glances, whispering and pointing. Furrowing her brow, she hurried to her office. Gu Yanchen sat at her desk, clad in a well-tailored suit, his handsome face shadowed with a hint of darkness. You've arrived. He looked up at her, his tone frigid. President Gu, do you need something from me? Suwon sought to cut through any pleasantries and get to the point. Suwon, are you so eager to climb onto Shinjin's bed? Gu Yanchen's voice dripped with sarcasm. For money or status, have you forsaken your dignity? Suwon's expression instantly hardened. She loathed men who presumed they were the center of the universe, believing every woman should revolve around them, devoted to them entirely. President Gu, my relationship with Shinjin is none of your concern, Su-won replied coldly. Furthermore, I advise you to show some respect. Respect? Gu Yanchen scoffed, as if hearing the greatest joke. He stood, advancing toward her step by step with a predatory gaze. You went so far as to feign injury to get close to Shinjin, and now you've climbed into his bed. Do you think you deserve to speak of respect? Su-won felt cornered, her back pressing against the cold wall, with no room to retreat. Gu Yanchen, do not overstep. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from anger. Overstep? Gu Yanchen reached out, attempting to grasp her chin. Let me tell you, Shinjin is ruthless. If you continue with him, one day he will tire of you and cast you aside. Before he could finish, a powerful hand seized his wrist. Shinjin appeared at the doorway, his countenance ominously dark, the chill in his gaze as piercing as ice. His grip was immensely strong, causing Gu Yanchen to wince in pain, his complexion turning as pale as a ghost. Ah, Shinjin, let me go. Let you go? Shinjin scoffed, his grip tightening further. Do you even deserve to touch her? His voice was as frigid as ice, laced with palpable hostility, rendering the surrounding colleagues utterly silent. Su-won gazed at Shinjin, warmth blossoming in her heart. She understood that his concern compelled him to follow her. Shinjin, it's all right. Su-won approached and tugged at his sleeve. Shinjin turned to look at her, the fury in his eyes dissipating significantly, replaced by profound tenderness. He released Gu Yanchen's wrist and instinctively shielded Su-won behind him, his gaze coldly fixed on Gu Yanchen. Gu Yanchen, I warn you, keep your distance from my woman. Shinjin's voice was low and hoarse, imbued with an undeniable threat. If I see you harassing her again, I won't hesitate to ensure the Gu family vanishes from this city. Gu Yanchen's face turned as pale as parchment. He recognized that Shinjin was not jesting. Shinjin possessed both the capability and the ruthlessness to execute his threats. In a state of disarray, Gu Yanchen withdrew his hand, clutching his reddened wrist, shooting a resentful glare at Su-won before retreating in disgrace. The office fell into an immediate hush. Colleagues observed Shinjin's protective stance over Su-won, their eyes filled with shock and envy. Shinjin turned to Su-won, gently wiping away the moisture at the corner of her eye, his tone unexpectedly tender. It's all right. Don't be afraid. Su-won shook her head, rising on her toes to embrace his neck. Thank you, Shinjin. Shinjin's body stiffened momentarily before he responded by holding her tightly, resting his chin atop her head, his voice low and hoarse. Fool, I promise to protect you. Sunlight poured through the window, casting a golden halo over the two of them. The surrounding colleagues exchanged warm smiles at the scene. In that moment, Su-won suddenly realized that for his sake, she would strive to complete this mission with all her might. She was determined to free him from the fate of darkness, ensuring he remained gentle and happy for life. Upon exiting the company, Shinjin's expression remained grim. He ushered Su-won into the car, starting the engine. Yet he did not head towards the villa. Where are we going? Su-won inquired, puzzled. To a place, Shinjin replied, his voice deep and gravelly. The car sped along until it came to a halt in front of a secluded villa. This was Shinjin's private residence, rarely visited by others. Upon entering the villa, Su-won noticed several men in black seated in the living room, all loyal subordinates of Shinjin. Upon his arrival, they immediately stood, respectfully greeting him, President Shun. Shinjin nodded, his icy gaze sweeping over them. What have you found? Reporting to President Shun, Gu Yanchen is colluding with his uncle's remnants. They intend to use Miss Su as leverage against you, coercing you into relinquishing the project in the west of the city, one of the men in black reported. Su-won's heart sank. Indeed, Gu Yanchen's approach was no coincidence. Shinjin's expression shifted to one of sharp intensity, akin to a drawn blade. Those who dare to act against me will pay the price. He turned to the men beside him, his tone chilling. Go. Sever the financial ties of the Gu group. Leave no remnants of his uncle's faction. Yes, President Shun. The men in black acknowledged, swiftly exiting. The living room was left with only Su-won and Shinjin. Su-won observed his cold profile, a sense of worry creeping in. Shinjin. Won't this be too troublesome? Shinjin turned to her, his gaze softening. He drew her into his embrace, his voice low and hoarse. It's not troublesome. They harm you. They harm me. I won't allow anyone to bully you. Su-won leaned against him, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, warmth enveloping her. She realized that this man truly held her dear. System ding. Detected Shinjin's protective behavior. Favorability 10. Current favorability 15. Host, you are remarkable. The system's voice brimmed with elation, and Su-won unconsciously smiled. 15. She was one significant step closer to success. Shinjin glanced at the smile tugging at her lips, unable to resist leaning down to kiss her softly. The kiss was gentle and tender, laced with a hint of tobacco, causing Su-won's heart to skip a beat. She lifted her gaze, meeting his profound eyes, where love simmered, unyielding and palpable. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, enveloping them in warmth and beauty. Su-won understood that from this moment onward, she and he would be inseparable. Regardless of the undercurrents of conspiracy or the system's tasks, she would stand by him, facing everything together. For she had fallen for this man, both ruthless and gentle. And Shunjin knew that he would never let go of her hand for the rest of his life. She was his light, his redemption, his singular obsession in this life. Chapter 7. The awakening of the wife's mind. The news of the Gu Group's financial collapse reverberated throughout the business community 3 days later. No one knew who was behind it. They only knew that Gu Yanshin had overnight transformed from a spirited young heir into a destitute man burdened with debts. Those who once flocked around him scattered like birds. The remnants of his uncle's faction did not escape either, with several key figures being apprehended by Shunjin's men and sent where they belonged. Su-won learned of the news through financial reports, watching Gu Yanshin's haggard face on the screen without a hint of emotion. Justice always prevails. This was his due. What are you looking at? Shinjin's voice came from behind her, tinged with the warmth of having just emerged from a shower. He was wrapped in a towel, droplets glistening on his sculpted chest, his sun-kissed skin glowing enticingly under the warm light. Su-won's cheeks flushed instantly as she turned away. Nothing, just browsing. Shinjin approached, encircling her waist from behind, resting his chin atop her head, his warm breath brushing against her ear. Are you worried? Not at all. Su-won shook her head, leaning into his embrace. I just feel you didn't need to go to such extremes for me. Extremes? Shunjin chuckled softly, his fingers lightly tracing her waist. They dared to touch those they shouldn't. This is the lightest price to pay. His voice held an undeniable harshness, yet was tender enough to send shivers down her spine. Su-won turned to meet his gaze. Shinjin, do you think I am a burden? A burden? Shinjin lowered his head, their noses brushing together, breaths intertwining. You are the treasure I wish to hold in my hands for the rest of my life. As his words fell, he leaned down and captured her lips in a kiss. This kiss was different from the last. It was filled with possessive fervor, as if he sought to meld her into his very being. Su-won's heart raced, nearly bursting from her chest as she closed her eyes, awkwardly responding by wrapping her arms around his neck. The moonlight outside was exceptionally bright. As the kiss concluded, both were left breathless. Shinjin rested his forehead against hers, the love in his eyes palpable. Su-won, I like you. This was the first time he had expressed his feelings so plainly. Su-won's eyes brimmed with tears as she rose on her toes to plant a kiss on the corner of his lips. I like you too. System. Ding. Detected Shinjin's active confession. Favorability 20. Current favorability 35. The wife's mind has completely awakened. Host, you are just one step away from success. The system's voice radiated with joy, but Su-won was too enraptured to pay it any heed. Nestled in Shunjin's embrace, feeling the strength of his heartbeat, her heart swelled with sweetness. From that day on, Shinjin's affectionate nature was no longer concealable. In the past, he would have maintained a certain aloofness befitting his stature. Yet now he openly dotes on Su-won, treating her like a cherished princess. When Su-won expressed a desire to savor the buns from the restaurant in the southern part of the city, which required a 2-hour wait, Shinjin rose at 5 in the morning, personally drove to procure them, and returned with a steaming basket of buns, beaming like a child seeking praise. Try these. They're still warm. Casually mentioning her wish to watch a particular film, Su-won found that Shinjin had reserved an entire cinema, requesting the staff to replace the snacks with her favorite flavors. Seated in the empty auditorium, their fingers intertwined, they were utterly engrossed in the movie. Even during meetings at the company, Shinjin insisted on bringing her along. He presided at the head of the table, clad in a sharp suit, decisively directing the proceedings with an aura so formidable that no one dared to meet his gaze. Yet, whenever Su-won gently tugged at his sleeve, he would immediately halt his discourse, lowering his head to inquire, "What is it, darling? Are you bored?" The affection in his tone left the senior executives present in stunned silence. Who could have imagined that the formidable Shinjin, feared in the business realm, possessed such a tender side? That afternoon, Su-won accompanied old lady Shun in the garden of the nursing home, basking in the sunlight. The elderly lady held a photograph, her smile wide. "Xiaowon, look at this picture of a Jin when he was little. He was as thin as a monkey and always trailing after me." As Su-won leaned in for a closer look, the boy in the faded photograph bore a resemblance to the current Shinjin, though his gaze held a timid defiance. So adorable, Su-won couldn't help but chuckle. "Adorable, you say? Those were trying times for him. If I hadn't protected him, he might have been bullied to death by his uncle. The old lady sighed, her voice tinged with sorrow. But as he grew older, he became increasingly distant. I thought he would never fall in love until he met you, Xiaowan. You have rekindled the light in his eyes. Warmth enveloped Su-Wan's heart as she grasped the old lady's hand. Grandma, I will always be by his side. Good child, the old lady patted her hand, eyes filled with contentment. It seems you two should settle down. Su-Wan's cheeks flushed instantly, and just as she was about to speak, a familiar voice interrupted from behind. Grandma, are you corrupting my darling again? Shinjin approached, naturally wrapping his arm around Su-Wan's waist and planting a kiss on her forehead. The old lady shot him a glare. I am doing this for your benefit. You rascal, don't think I'm oblivious to your little schemes. You should hurry up and propose. Shinjin's ears reddened slightly, but he offered no rebuttal. He gazed down at Su-Wan, sincerity etched in his expression. Once I've resolved my current matters, I will present you with a grand proposal. Su-Wan's heart skipped a beat, her cheeks reddening further. Just then, Shinjin's phone rang. It was Assistant Shun, speaking urgently. President Shin, we have a crisis. The partner for the Qingxi project has suddenly changed their stance, stating they wish to terminate the collaboration and have taken our core materials. Shinjin's expression darkened instantly. The Qingxi project had taken him 6 months to negotiate. It was crucial for the future of the Shin family, and it could not afford any mishaps. Understood. Shinjin replied, his voice icy as he hung up. I must head to the company. Do you want me to accompany you? Su-Wan asked. Worry etched on her face. No need, he said, ruffling her hair, the chill in his gaze softening a fraction. Behave while I'm gone. I'll bring you back strawberry cake. With that, he turned and left in haste. Watching his retreating figure, a sense of unease crept into Su-Wan's heart. She sensed that this matter was far from simple. Sure enough, Shinjin did not return until 10 that evening. Su-Wan sat anxiously on the sofa, glancing at the clock on the wall, her heart racing. She picked up her phone, intending to call Shinjin, but hesitated, fearing she might disrupt his work. System, host. Do not worry. Shinjin is quite capable and will surely resolve this. The system's voice offered reassurance, yet Su-Wan remained unsettled. Rising to find him at the company, she reached the door just as she heard the sound of it opening. Shinjin had returned. His suit was dust-laden, his tie askew, and his eyes were bloodshot, exuding exhaustion. Shinjin. Su-Wan hurried over to support him. Upon seeing her, the weariness in his eyes dissipated significantly. He embraced her, his voice hoarse. I'm back. What happened? Su-Wan asked anxiously. It's all resolved, Shinjin replied, shaking his head. The partner's issues have been dealt with, and we retrieved the core materials. Relief washed over Su-Wan as she reached to straighten his tie. That's good. You must be worn out. I've prepared a hot bath for you. Hurry and wash up. All right, Shinjin said, kissing the corner of her lips before entering the bathroom. Su-Wan observed his retreating figure, yet her unease lingered. She felt as though Shinjin was concealing something from her. After his shower, Shinjin lay in bed, pulling Su-Wan into his embrace. He remained silent for a long while before speaking, his tone low and raspy. Wan, I'm sorry. Su-Wan was taken aback. Why are you apologizing? What happened today is my fault, Shinjin confessed, guilt lacing his voice. The partner was incited by someone, and that instigator was targeting you. Su-Wan's heart sank. Targeting me? Yes, Shinjin nodded. They know you are my Achilles heel and sought to pressure me through the project, attempting to coerce me into yielding and handing you over. A wave of dread washed over Su-Wan. She gazed into Shinjin's guilt-ridden eyes, wrapping her arms around him. This is not your fault. They are the despicable ones. Despicable? Shinjin's expression turned icy. They will pay for their actions. He looked down at Su-Wan, his eyes filled with possessiveness. Wan, I will not allow anyone to harm you, even if it means sacrificing the Shun family fortune. I will protect you completely. Tears welled in Su-Wan's eyes as she stood on her toes and kissed him. This kiss was laden with love and concern. Shinjin flipped her beneath him, deepening the kiss. The moonlight streamed through the curtain's gap, bathing the two in a warm, beautiful glow. The next morning, Su-Wan awoke to the enticing aroma of food. Rubbing her eyes, she emerged from the bedroom to find Shinjin clad in an apron, busily preparing in the kitchen. The dining table overflowed with her favorite breakfast, soy milk, youtiao, steamed buns, and her beloved strawberry cake. Awake? Shinjin turned to her, his eyes sparkling with warmth. Come and eat breakfast. Su-Wan approached, her heart swelling with warmth at the sight of the spread. How did you rise so early? I wanted you to wake up to a delicious meal, Shinjin said, affectionately ruffling her hair. Try this cake. I specially bought it for you. Su-Wan took a spoonful of cake, savoring the sweet, yet subtle flavor, her eyes narrowing in delight. Seeing her satisfied expression, Shinjin couldn't help but smile. A message from Assistant Shin lit up on his phone, indicating that those who had incited the partner had been dealt with. Shinjin glanced at it, casually slipping the phone into his pocket. Those individuals were not worth his time. At this moment, he only wished to enjoy a sweet breakfast with his beloved. System ding. Detected a significant surge in Shinjin's wife's emotional state. Affection level increased by 15. Current affection level, 50. Host, you are halfway through your task. Suwon beamed at the numbers on the system panel, her smile deepening. She looked up at Shinjin's tender gaze and silently vowed to complete her task, to ensure this man remained happy for a lifetime. Meanwhile, Shinjin gazed at her, harboring a singular thought. In this lifetime, he was determined to make her his. Through all storms and sunshine, he would stand by her, safeguarding her until eternity. Chapter 8. The proposal. On the day when her favorability rating surpassed 50. Suwon was roused from her slumber by a series of soft rustling sounds. Rubbing her eyes, she sat up to find sunlight streaming through the sheer curtains, casting dappled shadows upon the floor. The space beside her was already vacant, still warm, while the air was infused with a delicate scent of coffee and the sweet fragrance of roses. Shinjin? Suwon called out, her voice husky from sleep. Awake? Shinjin's voice resonated from the doorway. He was clad in a neatly pressed beige casual suit, holding a tray that bore a cup of hot milk, a strawberry pancake, and a lush bouquet of crimson roses. Sunlight fell upon him, highlighting his tall silhouette. The usual coldness replaced with warmth, and the smile in his eyes was unmistakable. Suwon's heart skipped a beat as she watched him approach, unable to resist teasing. What special occasion is it today? This seems rather grand. Shinjin set the tray on the bedside table, leaned down to kiss her forehead, his voice deep and husky. It's a secret. He gently helped her up and tucked a few stray strands of hair behind her ear, his eyes brimming with affection. First, have breakfast. Later, I'll take you somewhere. As Suwon nibbled on the pancake, she observed the anticipation in his gaze, her curiosity piqued. Once they finished breakfast, Shinjin presented her with an exquisite gift box. Put this on. Opening the box, Suwon discovered a champagne-colored gown, its fabric light as butterfly wings, adorned with delicate sequins that sparkled brilliantly in the sunlight. Beside it lay a matching pair of high heels and a petite pearl clutch. This is simply stunning, Suwon exclaimed, unable to contain her admiration. My girl deserves the best. Shinjin embraced her from behind, resting his chin atop her head, his voice as tender as a caress. Blushing, Suwon retreated to the dressing room to don the gown. In the mirror, the girl reflected back at her was fair-skinned, with features like a painting, the champagne gown accentuating her graceful figure and gentle demeanor. Leaning against the doorframe, Shinjin's gaze darkened as he beheld her. He slowly approached, taking her hand in his fingertips brushing against her skin, his voice husky. Won, you are truly beautiful. Suwon's cheeks flushed, unable to meet his eyes. Where are we going? You will find out when we arrive, Shinjin replied, intertwining their fingers, the warmth of his palm palpable. The car sped along, eventually halting before a private estate on the outskirts of the city. The grand gates opened slowly, revealing a path strewn with rose petals. The lampposts adorned with warm yellow lights, and the air thick with floral fragrance. In the distance, a white tent stood on the lawn, illuminated by twinkling fairy lights, resembling a fallen starry sky. Suwon gazed in awe, turning to Shinjin. This is prepared for you, he affirmed, gripping her hand tightly as they stepped into the estate. Inside the tent, Mrs. Shun sat on a sofa, waving at them with a smile. Xiaowon, come here. As Suwon approached, she noticed several familiar faces, including Shinjin's assistant, Chinzhou, and some of Shinjin's close confidants, all of whom fought alongside him. Their gazes towards Suwon were warm, devoid of any aloofness. Grandma, what is going on? Suwon could not help but inquire. Mrs. Shun smiled mysteriously. You will find out shortly. As her words faded, a melodious piano tune filled the air. Shinjin took Suwon's hand, his expression earnest. Would you dance with me? Suwon nodded, allowing him to lead her to the dance floor. Moonlight cascaded down, the evening breeze brushed past them, and rose petals danced in the wind. Shinjin's steps were steady, the warmth of his palm transmitting through the delicate fabric of her gown, igniting a flutter in Suwon's heart. Nestled in his embrace, she listened to the rhythm of his heart, the scent of cedar and roses enveloping her, bringing her serenity. As the music concluded, Shinjin guided her to the center of the lawn. The surrounding lights dimmed suddenly, leaving only a spotlight illuminating them. Chinzhou approached, holding a velvet box, which he presented to Shinjin. Kneeling on one knee, Shinjin looked up at Suwon, his eyes brimming with unwavering love. Suwon's heart raced as she gazed at the box, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Wan, Shunjin's voice trembled imperceptibly yet remained resolute. Before I met you, my life was shrouded in darkness, filled only with vengeance and schemes. You are the light that brightened my bleak world. You saved my grandmother, stood by me through the long nights, and embraced my flaws. You have shown me the profound happiness of being loved. I am not a perfect man. I am cruel, possessive, and flawed. But I promise you, for the rest of my life, I will love you, protect you, and cherish you. Will you marry me? As he opened the velvet box, a magnificent diamond ring lay within, sparkling brilliantly under the spotlight. Tears streamed down Su Wan's cheeks as she beheld the depth of his affection, her voice caught in her throat. System. Ding. Proposal from Shunjin detected. Favorability increase 30. Current favorability 80. Host, you are on the verge of success. The system's voice brimmed with excitement, yet Su Wan was oblivious to it. She focused on Shunjin, kneeling before her, his eyes filled with anxiety and hope, and nodded fervently. I do. The 3 words ignited a spark in Shunjin's eyes. He rose, carefully sliding the ring onto her ring finger, then enveloped her in a tight embrace. Thank you, Wan. His voice quivered, resting his chin atop her head, his body trembling slightly. The air was filled with enthusiastic applause and cheers. Mrs. Shun wiped her tears, beaming with joy. Chen Zhou and the others joined in the applause, their eyes filled with warmth. As Su Wan leaned against Shunjin, her tears flowed freely, yet her heart was sweetened like honey. She knew that this moment transcended mere strategy or task. It was a genuine awakening of her heart. This fierce and possessive man had orchestrated a grand proposal in his own unique way. The atmosphere of the engagement party was both fervent and heartwarming. Mrs. Shun clasped Su Wan's hand, excitedly discussing wedding details, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Chen Zhou and the others approached to offer their congratulations and blessings. Shunjin remained steadfastly by Su Wan's side, his possessiveness evident, yet laced with adoration. When someone offered a toast to Su Wan, he immediately stepped in front of her, drinking on her behalf. She cannot drink. I will do it for her. When someone requested a photo with Su Wan, he would pull her close, claiming the space beside her, a hint of jealousy glimmering in his eyes. Only one picture. Su Wan chuckled at his childlike demeanor, unable to suppress her laughter. This man was becoming increasingly clingy. Halfway through the banquet, Shunjin took Su Wan's hand and led her to the terrace of the estate. The moonlight was bright, the stars twinkled, and the distant lake shimmered. Did you enjoy today's proposal? Shunjin gazed down at her, his eyes filled with gentle warmth. Su Wan nodded, wrapping her arms around his waist. I did. That's good. He leaned down to kiss her forehead. I have set the wedding date for next month. I will give you an even grander wedding. It doesn't need to be too extravagant. Su Wan shook her head, resting against him. As long as I am with you, that is enough. Shunjin's heart melted. He leaned down and captured her lips in a kiss. This kiss was laden with deep affection and cherishment, exquisitely tender. As moonlight cascaded down and the evening breeze caressed them, their silhouettes elongated, merging into one. Su Wan closed her eyes, savoring his warmth, silently vowing that after the wedding, she would inform the system of her desire to remain in this world, by his side. She wishes to accompany him to explore the mountains, rivers, and seas, to share with him the long years that lie ahead. She desires to make him aware that he is not alone. He has her. The system chimes in, detecting the host's genuine emotions. Shunjin's affection level has reached 10. Current affection level, 90. Host, just a bit more effort, and the task will be completed. Su Wan gazes at the numbers on the system panel, a smile of happiness gracing her lips. 90. Only 10 points remain to complete the task. She knows that these last 10 points are merely a matter of time, for the love between her and Shunjin will gradually settle and warm over the years, enduring until the end of time. Shunjin looks down at the smile on her lips, unable to resist kissing her again. Chapter 9. The pre-wedding phase. After the engagement banquet, the entire Shin family estate is enveloped in the joy of wedding preparations. Grandmother Shin personally oversees every detail, from the style of the wedding dress to the menu for the banquet, her eyes sparkling with delight. Shunjin has even set aside all unnecessary work to accompany Su Wan in selecting wedding items, visiting every jewelry store in the city to find the perfect wedding band for her. Su Wan's days feel like a sweet immersion in honey. Each morning, she awakens to Shunjin's gentle profile, her favorite breakfast always waiting on the table, and the air filled with a sugary aroma. The system's voice brims with barely contained excitement. Host, current affection level is 90, only 10 points away from task completion. As long as the wedding proceeds smoothly and Shunjin's affection peaks, the level will undoubtedly soar. leaning against Shun Jin's shoulder. Suwon gazes at the neatly trimmed roses outside the window, a faint smile gracing her lips. I understand. She no longer cares about the task. Her focus is solely on the man beside her. She cares for his joys and sorrows, for his comfort and well-being, and for the love that shines in his eyes when he looks at her. That afternoon, Suwon accompanies grandmother Shin to try on wedding dresses. Upon entering the haute couture boutique, she sees a familiar figure standing before the mirror, entranced by a red qipao. It is Lin Weiwei, the female lead from the novel, and someone Shin Jin once harbored a slight affection for. Suwon pauses, while grandmother Shin frowns. What is she doing here? Hearing the voices, Lin Weiwei turns around. Clad in a simple white dress, her face is pale, and her eyes reveal deep exhaustion, starkly contrasting with the vibrant character described in the book. Upon seeing Suwon and grandmother Shun, a flicker of panic crosses Lin Weiwei's gaze, quickly replaced by a forced smile. Grandma Shun, Miss Su, what brings you here? Grandmother Shin's tone is distant, lacking fondness for Lin Weiwei, whom she perceives as too scheming to be worthy of her grandson. Lin Weiwei clutches the edge of her garment tightly, her voice trembling. I just came to take a look. I heard that Mr. Shun is getting married. Congratulations to you both. Observing her demeanor, Suwon feels no stirrings of emotion. In the book, Lin Weiwei sought to climb the social ladder by exploiting Shun Jin's affection, stirring discord between him and the original protagonist. Ultimately, her schemes were uncovered, leading to her abandonment by Gu Yinqing and a tragic fate. Presently, she appears to be struggling. Thank you, Suwon replies coolly, guiding grandmother Shun to the fitting room entrance. Grandma, let us try on the dresses. All right, grandmother Shun nods, casting a lingering glare at Lin Weiwei before they enter. Once inside the fitting room, grandmother Shin sighs. Xiaowan, don't mind her. Lin Weiwei used to frequent Shun Jin's company. I sensed her intentions towards him. But now that you two are getting married, she won't be able to stir up any trouble. I understand, Grandma. Suwon smiles, assisting grandmother Shun in removing her coat. I trust Shin Jin. She believes in Shun Jin's feelings for her and in her own judgment of character. Emerging from the fitting room, they find Lin Weiwei has vanished. Shin Jin's car awaits them outside. Upon seeing Suwon, he promptly exits the vehicle and strides to her side, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. How did it go? Do you like it? I do. Suwon nods, linking her arm with his. Grandma looks particularly lovely in that purple qipao. Good eye. Shin Jin leans down to kiss her forehead before turning to grandmother Shun. Grandma, are you tired? I can take you back to the nursing home to rest. Not at all. Grandmother Shun waves her hand, her smile radiant. I still want to check out the banquet venue. As the car slowly departs from the boutique, Suwon leans against Shun Jin's shoulder, gazing at the fleeting scenery outside, an inexplicable unease stirring within her. She cannot shake the feeling that Lin Weiwei's appearance is not as simple as it seems. Indeed, within 3 days, trouble arises. One morning, Suwon awakens to find Shin Jin sitting on the sofa in the living room, his expression dark and foreboding. He holds a newspaper, his knuckles pale, the chill in his gaze palpable. Shin Jin, what's wrong? Suwon's heart sinks as she rushes over. Shin Jin lifts his head and hands her the newspaper, his voice as cold as ice. You read it. The headline boldly features a photo of Shin Jin and Lin Weiwei standing closely together, her hand resting on his arm, suggesting an intimacy that is alarming. The title is even more glaring. Shun Group President Shin Jin meets old flame Lin Weiwei before wedding, suspected of emotional turmoil. Suwon's hand trembles slightly as she gazes at the image, her heart gripped by an invisible force, aching painfully. The photo is clearly manipulated. Shin Jin's expression is frigid, lacking any semblance of intimacy. Moreover, the background is the cafe beneath Shin Jin's company, where she remembers he had indeed gone that day to handle matters regarding the Chengxi project. This cannot be true. Suwon raises her gaze to meet Shin Jin's eyes, her tone resolute. I believe in you. Shin Jin's body stiffens momentarily, the chill in his gaze dissipating, replaced by guilt and concern. He pulls her into his embrace, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry, Wanwan. I failed to manage this properly and caused you distress. That day in the cafe, he had encountered Lin Weiwei, who wept and begged for his assistance, claiming that Gu Yinqing had sold her to loan sharks and that they threatened to break her legs if she failed to repay the debt. Shin Jin had intended to refuse her, but a photograph was taken, sensationalized, and published in the newspaper. I'm fine. Suwon leans into his embrace, gently patting his back. I know you are not that kind of person. She understands that Shin Jin has never harbored any romantic feelings for Lin Weiwei. His past fondness was merely due to a single act of rescue. Now his heart belongs solely to her. Leave this matter to me. Shin Jin's expression sharpens, his gaze turning fierce. I will make those who spread rumors pay the price. He picks up his phone and calls Assistant Shun, issuing ice-cold orders. After hanging up, he looks down at Su-won, his eyes filled with deep remorse. Won, the wedding will not be affected. I promise you. I believe in you. Su-won looks up and kisses the corner of his lips. She trusts him, just as she believes that the sun will rise in the east and set in the west, and that the moon will wax and wane. However, the unfolding events prove to be far more intricate than Su-won anticipated. That very afternoon, Lin Weiwei arrives at Shunjin's company. She kneels at the entrance to his office, crying and pleading to see him, drawing the attention of many employees. Mr. Shun, please help me. Gu Yanqing sold me to loan sharks. They said if I don't repay, they will break my legs. Lin Weiwei's voice is piercing, eliciting murmurs from those around her. Shunjin's face darkens ominously as he instructs Assistant Shun to bring Lin Weiwei into his office and shut the door, his tone icy. What do you want? Lin Weiwei raises her head, her face stained with tears. Mr. Shun, I realize my mistakes. I should not have placed my trust in Gu Yanqing's words. Nor should I have attempted to sow discord between you and Miss Su. I beseech you, please assist me. I find myself utterly cornered. Shunjin regarded her with an expression devoid of any compassion. You and Gu Yanqing conspired together, capturing those photographs and publishing them in the newspaper. All to force my hand in aiding you. Lin Weiwei's body stiffened momentarily before she shook her head in tears. No, I did not take the photos. Gu Yanqing coerced me. President Shun, I truly realize my mistakes. Shunjin let out a cold laugh, his gaze laced with scorn. Do you truly believe I would trust you? His feelings for Lin Weiwei had long since evaporated. The only reason he had paid her any attention in the past was due to her kindness in providing him with a meal during his lowest moments. In hindsight, that slight goodwill appeared to be driven by ulterior motives. President Shun, I leave. Shunjin's voice was as frigid as ice. I do not wish to see you again. Lin Weiwei, recognizing the futility of further pleas as she met his icy gaze, gritted her teeth and stood up, a flicker of resentment flashing in her eyes. Shunjin, you will regret this. Do you truly believe Su-won loves you sincerely? She approaches you for your wealth, for your status. Shunjin's expression sharpened instantly, like a blade drawn from its sheath. Repeat that. Lin Weiwei found herself intimidated by his imposing aura, silenced as she turned and fled in disarray. The office was left empty, save for Shunjin. He gazed out the window, the coldness in his eyes deepening. He was indifferent to Lin Weiwei's words. His concern lay solely with Su-won. He cherished her smile, her gentleness, and the light that sparkled in her eyes when she looked at him. Whoever dared to defame her or inflict harm upon her would face dire consequences. Upon returning home that evening, Su-won was seated on the sofa, engrossed in the news on television. The report revealed that the newspaper responsible for the false articles had been shut down, and its director was taken away for investigation. Upon seeing Shunjin return, Su-won rose promptly and hurried to his side. You're back? Are you tired? Shunjin shook his head, drawing her into his embrace, resting his chin atop her head as he spoke in a hoarse voice. Won, I am sorry. Why do you keep saying that? Su-won gently placed her hand on his mouth, smiling. I told you, I believe in you. Shunjin gazed into her eyes, his own filled with a blend of guilt and heartache. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. This kiss was imbued with profound love and cherishment, tender beyond measure. The moonlight outside was bright and clear, the scent of roses wafted into the room, sweet and warm. Su-won nestled against Shunjin, her inner turmoil gradually dissipating. She understood that as long as he was by her side, any challenges could be effortlessly overcome. The system chimed, ding. Detection of Shunjin's trust in the host has surged. Affection level 5. Current affection level, 95. Host, keep it up. Just 5 more points to go. Su-won's lips curled into a gentle smile. 95, just 5 more points, and the task would be complete. She knew that these final 5 points lay within the grand wedding ceremony. At the moment she and he exchanged vows for a lifetime, gazing into each other's eyes. Chapter 10. The wedding. On the day of the wedding, the sun shone brightly, the sky a canvas of blue. The Shun family estate was adorned as if from a fairy tale, bursting with blooming roses, pink balloons floating in the air, and warm yellow lights twining around the branches. The air was rich with the sweet fragrance of flowers and the essence of happiness. Guests gathered, including business elites and aristocrats, all in attendance. They donned splendid attire, exchanging cheerful conversation, their gazes frequently drifting towards the upstairs dressing room, eagerly anticipating the arrival of the bride and groom. Inside the dressing room, Su-won sat before the vanity mirror, observing her reflection. She wore a pristine white wedding gown, embellished with tiny diamonds that sparkled brilliantly in the sunlight. The veil floated like butterfly wings, accentuating her fair skin and picturesque features, rendering her as enchanting as an ethereal fairy. Madame Shin stood nearby, her eyes welling up with tears of joy. Truly beautiful, truly beautiful. Our little Wan is simply stunning today. Su-Wan turned to grasp the elder woman's hand, her voice thick with emotion. Grandmother, thank you. Silly child, what is there to thank? The elder woman chuckled, her face beaming with joy. You will soon be the bride of the Shin family. Cherish your life with Shinjin. I will. Su-Wan nodded, her eyes brimming with happiness. Just then, the door swung open, and Shinjin entered. Clad in a tailored black suit, the fabric accentuated his tall frame. His hair was meticulously styled, revealing a well-defined forehead. His features were deep and striking, his eyes carrying an extra touch of warmth and gentleness today. The moment he laid eyes on Su-Wan, Shinjin paused, captivated. His gaze lingered on her, overflowing with love so profound it seemed to envelop her. Wan. Shinjin's voice was hoarse, tinged with an almost imperceptible tremor. Su-Wan lifted her head, meeting his fathomless gaze, her heart skipping a beat. She rose, lifting the hem of her gown, and walked toward him step by step. Do I look beautiful? Su-Wan asked softly, a hint of shyness in her eyes. Beautiful. Shinjin nodded, taking her hand in his fingertips gently caressing her hand's surface. You are the most beautiful bride I have ever seen. Su-Wan's cheeks flushed instantly, her head lowered, unable to meet his gaze. Shinjin, enchanted by her bashful demeanor, found his smile deepening. He leaned down, planting a tender kiss on her forehead. His voice soft enough to draw tears. Are you ready? My bride. I am ready. Su-Wan nodded, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Shinjin entwined his fingers with hers, their palms warm against each other. Together, they stepped out of the dressing room, making their way toward the wedding stage set in the center of the lawn. The melodic wedding march began to play, prompting the guests to rise, their eyes fixed on the couple as they gracefully approached. Sunlight bathed them, casting a golden halo around them. Rose petals danced in the breeze, landing softly on their hair and shoulders, a scene reminiscent of a beautiful oil painting. Su-Wan rested her head on Shinjin's shoulder, listening to the rhythmic beating of his heart. Surrounded by the admiring gazes of the guests, her heart swelled with tranquility. She knew that from this moment forth, she was his wife, his one and only love for a lifetime. As they reached the center of the stage, the officiant smiled and began, esteemed guests, beloved friends and family, welcome to the wedding ceremony of Mr. Shinjin and Miss Su-Wan. Su-Wan listened to the officiant's voice, her eyes drifting to the delighted smile on Madame Shin's face, to Assistant Shin and the other trusted aides offering their blessings. Her lips curled into a blissful smile. The officiant's words faded into the background as she focused solely on the man beside her. Mr. Shinjin, do you take Miss Su-Wan to be your wife, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love, protect, and cherish her for all your days? Never to part? Shinjin met Su-Wan's gaze, his eyes resolute, his voice resounding. I do. His declaration echoed through the microphone, resonating throughout the estate, reaching the depths of Su-Wan's heart. The officiant then turned to Su-Wan. Miss Su-Wan, do you take Mr. Shinjin to be your husband? For better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love, trust, and accompany him for all your days, never to part? Looking into Shinjin's eyes, filled with love, Su-Wan felt a rush of emotion, her nose tingling as tears threatened to spill. She inhaled deeply, her voice quivering yet unwavering. I do. As her words hung in the air, the surroundings erupted in thunderous applause and cheers. Shinjin, witnessing her reddened eyes, tenderly wiped away her tears, leaning down to kiss her lips. This kiss was filled with profound love and cherishment, gentle beyond measure. Sunlight poured down, a soft breeze caressed them, and the fragrance of roses filled the air, sweet and warm. Time seemed to stand still in that moment. The system chimed, ding. Detection of wedding vows completed. Shinjin's affection for his partner has reached its zenith, with a favorability rating of 100. The system's voice echoed with elation. Yet Su-Wan was too absorbed in the moment to pay attention. Nestled in Shinjin's embrace, she felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a gentle smile gracing her lips. The mission had been accomplished. She had successfully navigated the complexities of winning over this ruthless and obsessive man, averting his descent into darkness. However, she understood that this was not the conclusion, but rather the commencement of their lifelong journey together. Following their wedding, Su-Wan and Shinjin embarked on their honeymoon in the Maldives. The azure sea and sky, swaying palm trees, pristine beaches, and crystalline waters created a scene reminiscent of a fairy tale. Shinjin set aside all his work to spend each day with Su-Wan, witnessing sunrises and sunsets, diving, swimming, and savoring local delicacies. He was no longer the decisive tycoon of the business world, but simply a devoted husband. One evening, as Su-won leaned against Shun Jin's shoulder, she watched the sun slowly dip below the horizon, painting half the sky in shades of crimson. "Shin-jin," Su-won softly inquired, "do you love me?" Shin-jin lowered his gaze, planting a tender kiss on her forehead, his voice dripping with warmth. "Indeed. How much do you love me?" she probed. "So deeply that I would forsake everything for you," he replied, his chin resting atop her head, his voice husky. Tears welled in Su-won's eyes as she turned to embrace him, sealing her lips against his. This kiss was imbued with profound love and gratitude, lingering and passionate. As the sun set and the moon rose, the stars adorned the sky. Snuggled in Shun-jin's arms, Su-won gazed at the celestial display, her heart enveloped in tranquility. She realized that she would never part from him again. She was determined to accompany him through mountains and seas, sharing the long journey of life, from youthful exuberance to the twilight of their years. Meanwhile, Shin-jin held the girl in his arms, his gaze fixed on the starry expanse, his eyes shimmering with joy. He recognized that he had discovered a treasure of unparalleled worth in this lifetime. He vowed to cherish, protect, and love her, unwaveringly, for eternity. Chapter 11. Epilogue. After their honeymoon in the Maldives, Su-won and Shin-jin returned to the Shun family estate. Life did not lose its sweetness with the conclusion of their wedding. Rather, it blossomed like a perfectly aged wine, becoming richer with each passing day. Shin-jin's endearing husbandly traits flourished post-wedding, so much so that even Assistant Shun could not help but silently lament the loss of the once formidable CEO Shun, who seemed to have surrendered all his sharp edges to Miss Su. As the morning sun streamed through the curtains, Su-won was roused from her slumber by a gentle rustling. Rubbing her eyes, she sat up to see Shin-jin clad in the rabbit apron she had stitched, tiptoeing toward the bedroom door. Hearing her stir, he promptly turned, signaling for silence, his eyes brimming with tenderness. "Awake? Sleep a little longer. Breakfast will be ready shortly." Su-won yawned, wrapping herself in the blanket as she observed his retreating figure with a smile. "Aren't you supposed to attend the morning meeting at the office? Why are you making breakfast yourself?" Shin-jin approached the bed, leaned down to kiss her forehead, and replied, "Shin-jo will keep an eye on things. It's not a problem to spare half an hour. You mentioned yesterday that you wanted shrimp and scrambled eggs, so I specifically bought fresh shrimp." Her heart swelled with affection as she reached out to wrap her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. "Shin-jin, why are you becoming increasingly clingy?" Shin-jin chuckled softly, running his fingers through her hair. "Only clingy with you." When Su-won descended after freshening up, the dining table was adorned with a sumptuous spread of shrimp and scrambled eggs, strawberry pancakes, hot milk, and her favorite steaming wontons, their aroma wafting through the air. Shin-jin was seated at the table, engrossed in a financial newspaper. Upon seeing her, he immediately set the paper aside and pulled out a chair for her. "Come. Sit and taste." Su-won scooped a spoonful of the scrambled eggs, which melted in her mouth, her eyes sparkling with delight. "Delicious. Even better than what a chef would prepare." Shin-jin's eyes glowed with joy, reminiscent of a child who had just received candy. His ears tinged with a faint blush. "If you like it, eat more." After breakfast, Shin-jin prepared to leave for the office. Dressed in his suit and ready to step out, he was halted by Su-won, who approached with a tie in hand. She stood on tiptoe to fasten it for him, her fingers slender and movements earnest. As Shin-jin gazed down at her, his eyes lingered on her slightly flushed cheeks, his throat involuntarily tightening. Once the tie was secured, as Su-won attempted to withdraw her hand, he pulled her into his embrace. He pressed his lips against hers, carrying the sweet scent of milk, his gentleness almost overwhelming. "I'll take you to that newly opened hot pot restaurant in the west of the city when I return at noon," he murmured, his voice husky. Su-won felt her cheeks flush as she nodded. "Okay." With that, Shin-jin released her, turning to leave. Assistant Shun had been waiting at the door for quite some time. Upon seeing Shin-jin, he promptly handed over the briefcase, unable to resist a quip. "Mr. Shun, you are already 10 minutes late for the morning meeting." Shin-jin, however, remained unfazed. As he settled into the car, he added, "Remember to have the assistant book a window seat at the hot pot restaurant. Su-won enjoys the view." Assistant Shin sighed. "Our boss is beyond saving." In the afternoon, Su-won accompanied Grandma Shun to the garden of the nursing home to bask in the sun. The elderly lady was knitting a delicate pink sweater, prompting Su-won's curiosity. "Grandma, who is this for?" Grandma Shun looked up, her eyes narrowing into joyous slits. "For my great-grandson. You two need to work a little harder. I want to hold my great-grandson soon." Su-won's cheeks flushed crimson as she shyly lowered her gaze. "Grandma, please don't rush." "How can I not?" Grandma Shin set down her knitting needles, taking Su-won's hand, Look at that boy Shinjin. He treats you like a treasure. I worry about him. Just then, Shinjin returned, holding a pink bag. He hurried over, presenting it to Su-won. I passed by the dessert shop and bought you strawberry daifuku. Su-won opened the bag to find the daifuku still chilled, soft and sweet, just to her taste. Why are you back? Don't you have work? She asked, puzzled. I missed you. Shinjin replied matter-of-factly, drawing her into his embrace and kissing the top of her head. The meeting ended early, so I came back to see you. Grandma Shin watched the couple's affectionate exchange, unable to suppress a teasing remark. You rascal, forgetting your mother now that you have a wife. Shinjin, however, paid no heed. His gaze solely on Su-won, filled with affection. My mother has a daughter-in-law to pamper her. All I care about is pampering my wife. Su-won laughed at his playful banter, playfully punching his chest. As the sun dipped below the horizon, golden rays enveloped the three, creating a heartwarming scene. That evening, Su-won nestled on the sofa, engrossed in a drama, while Shinjin sat beside her, working on his laptop. As the on-screen couple quarreled, Su-won's eyes brimmed with tears, nearly spilling over. Shinjin, sensing her distress, closed his laptop and pulled her into his arms. Offering her a tissue to wipe her tears. What's wrong? Is the plot too heartbreaking? Su-won sniffed, leaning into his embrace. They are so pitiful. Shinjin kissed the corner of her eye, his voice soothing. Don't cry. We won't end up like them. I will always be by your side and ensure you never suffer a moment of distress. Su-won lifted her gaze to meet his deep, affectionate eyes, which brimmed with an intensity that was palpable. She wrapped her arms around his neck, leaning in to kiss the corner of his lips. Shinjin, I love you. His body stiffened momentarily before he flipped her onto the sofa, kissing her deeply and fervently. Outside, the moonlight bathed the room in a bright glow, and the scent of roses wafted through the air, sweet and warm. Days turned into weeks, seasons changed, and time flowed on. Su-won's belly began to swell, while Shinjin grew increasingly anxious, wishing to cradle her gently in his hands. He declined all business trips, returning home punctually each day to accompany her on walks, sharing stories, and in the evenings, resting his head on her belly to listen to the baby's heartbeat. Baby, I am your father. Shinjin's voice was tender and gentle. You must be good and not bully your mother. Su-won could not help but chuckle at his cautious demeanor. He is still so small, he cannot understand. However, Shinjin shook his head earnestly. He can understand. Months later, Su-won successfully gave birth to a daughter. A petite bundle, exquisitely delicate, resembling a little angel. When Shinjin held his daughter for the first time, his hands trembled, his eyes filled with astonishment and joy, his voice quaking. She is so small. Su-won leaned against the headboard, watching him fumble, and could not help but laugh. Be careful, don't hurt her. Shinjin nodded immediately, his movements becoming gentler, as if cradling a rare treasure. From that day onward, Shinjin acquired another soft spot. The first thing he did upon returning home each day was to check on his daughter, showering her with kisses before tending to Su-won. On the day of their daughter's full moon celebration, the estate hosted a grand banquet. Guests looked on in amusement as Shinjin held his daughter, cautious and tender. Only Su-won understood that this man, once ruthless and obsessive, had been softened by love. He was no longer the Shinjin who only comprehended revenge and calculation. He was her husband and the father of their daughter. He was the love of her life. Years later, their daughter had grown into a little shadow, trailing after Shinjin every day, calling out daddy, daddy. Shinjin remained the same devoted husband, merely dividing his affection for Su-won between her and their daughter. On a sunny weekend afternoon, Su-won was seated on a swing in the garden, engrossed in a book, while Shinjin sat beside her, gently pushing her swing. Their daughter nestled against his shoulder, savoring a strawberry-flavored lollipop. Mama, Daddy says he loves both me and you the most, the little girl announced, her voice sweet and innocent. Su-won looked up at Shinjin, her eyes filled with joy. Shinjin returned her gaze with warmth, his voice deep and husky. Yes, I love you both the most. A gentle breeze swept through, causing rose petals to dance in the air, landing softly on the three of them. Time flowed peacefully. Year after year, just like this. Chapter 12, Extra 2 in the 5th year of their daughter, Shin Yinwei's life. The roses in the Shin family estate bloomed more vibrantly than ever. Delicate pink and white petals climbed over the fence, cascading down with the slightest breeze, carpeting the stone paths in the garden in a pink hue. On this weekend, Su-won was seated in a wicker chair beneath the rose trellis, engrossed in her book. When the melodious laughter of her daughter reached her ears, she looked up to see Shinjin squatting on the lawn, allowing Shin Yinwei to tug at his hair as she adorned his head with rose blossoms. The man, dressed impeccably in casual attire, His hair tousled and a few pink roses askew on his head displayed not a hint of impatience. He gazed up at his daughter, his eyes brimming with tenderness. Speaking softly, "Be gentle, don't poke yourself." Shin Yinwei stood on her tiptoes, her little face flushed with excitement, declaring, "Daddy must be good. This is Mama's favorite flower. When Mama sees it, she will be happy." Suwon could not suppress her laughter, rising from her seat. "Yin Yin, don't bully your father." Upon hearing her voice, Shin Yinwei immediately turned and leapt into her embrace, looking up proudly. "Mama, do you think the flowers on Daddy's head are pretty?" Suwon looked at Shinjin, unable to contain her laughter. The sunlight bathed him, highlighting his gentle profile, and the roses on his head softened his usually stern features. "They are lovely," Suwon smiled. Brushing petals from Shinjin's shoulder, "Our Shinzong is going to be the subject of Assistant Chen's jokes today." Shinjin stood, effortlessly wrapping his arms around both mother and daughter, kissing Suwon's forehead, his voice low and husky. "Even if I am laughed at, it is worth it." His gaze swept over the blooming roses, and he suddenly recalled the first time he brought Suwon to this estate many years ago. She had been somewhat shy, yet now she was the steadfast heart of their family, the embodiment of his most cherished tenderness. After lunch, Shin Yinwei was taken to a nursing home by the elderly matriarch, and the garden fell silent. Suwon leaned against Shinjin, seated on the wicker chair, basking in the sun. His hand rested lightly on her waist, his fingers brushing against the hem of her garment. A gesture born of years of intimacy. "Do you remember?" Shinjin suddenly spoke, his voice carried by the gentle wind. "The first time you came here. The weather was just like this." Suwon paused, then smiled. "Of course, I remember. I had just agreed to move in with you." Feeling quite anxious about the new arrangement, he had taken her around the garden, and when she exclaimed about the beauty of the roses, he had committed it to memory, ensuring they were meticulously cared for each year since. "What prompted this memory?" Suwon inquired, looking up at him. Shinjin lowered his head, his nose brushing against hers. Their breaths mingling. "I was thinking how fortunate I was to have brought you back that day. How fortunate that I invited you to live with me. How fortunate that you have been by my side all these years." Suwon's heart fluttered, and she encircled his neck, leaning in to kiss the corner of his lips. The kiss was light, yet carried the weight of their shared years. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the matriarch returned with Shin Yinwei. The little girl rushed in, clamoring for the strawberry pudding that Suwon had made. Without hesitation, Shinjin rolled up his sleeves and headed to the kitchen. Having honed his culinary skills over the years to delight his wife and daughter, Suwon leaned against the kitchen door, watching Shinjin, clad in a bunny apron, carefully stirring the pudding mixture. In that moment, she felt a deep sense of contentment. There were no schemes, no deceit. Only the warmth of daily life and the companionship that spanned the years. As Shin Yinwei grew older, she became a little adult, often pestering Suwon for stories from the past. "Mama, did you fall in love with Daddy at first sight?" the little girl asked, resting her chin on Suwon's lap. Suwon stroked her soft hair, laughing as she shook her head. "Oh no, Mama was terrified when she first met your father." "Really?" Shin Yinwei's eyes widened in disbelief. "But Daddy is so gentle. How could he be scary?" Suwon recalled the depth of Shinjin's gaze and the cold aura he exuded upon their first encounter, laughing softly. "That is because your father reserved all his tenderness for us." Just then, Shinjin walked in, bending down to scoop up Shin Yinwei, and took Suwon's hand. His eyes full of mirth, "Not just tenderness, everything I have belongs to you both." Shin Yinwei giggled in his arms, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Daddy is the best." Time swiftly passed, and years later, Shin Yinwei blossomed into a graceful young woman, gaining admission to a university in a distant city. On the day of her enrollment, the little girl, with tears in her eyes, clung to Suwon. "Mama, I will miss you. And Daddy, don't bully Mama." Shinjin stood nearby, observing the redness in his daughter's eyes, an unusual mist forming in his own. He turned away, clearing his throat, his voice slightly hoarse. "Understood. Come back early during the holidays." After Shin Yinwei left, the estate returned to its usual tranquility. Yet, Suwon did not feel lonely, for Shinjin was always by her side. He would decline all unnecessary social engagements, returning home on time each day to share meals with her. He would hold her hand as they strolled along the rose-petal-strewn paths, and before bed, he would recount amusing anecdotes from work or read passages from her favorite books. One night, as Suwon lay in Shinjin's embrace, gazing at the stars, she sighed. "Nian Nian has grown up and spread her wings." Shinjin tightened his hold, drawing her closer. "It is all right. She has her own life, and we have ours." He lowered his head, gazing at the strands of silver hair at her temples. His eyes filled with tenderness. "You have endured so much over the years." Suwon shook her head. reaching out to caress the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, smiling as she said, "It has not been hard. Every day spent with you is a blessing." In his youth, Shunjin was a brooding and obsessive antagonist, a figure of reverence in the business world. Yet only she understood that beneath all the accolades, he was merely a man who could be jealous, who would act coy, and who would treat her like a princess. Another year had passed, bringing the blooming of roses. At over 40, Shinjin still accompanied Su-won beneath the rose trellis. His hair now bore flecks of silver, and the fine lines around his eyes had deepened. Yet the look he cast upon her remained unchanged, brimming with an unwavering affection. On the day Shin Yinwei brought her boyfriend home, this was the scene she encountered. The setting sun bathed the rose trellis, casting a warm glow over the entire yard. Her father was gently peeling an orange for her mother, his movements tender beyond words. Her mother rested against his shoulder, a book in hand, a faint smile gracing her lips. The tranquility of time was perhaps epitomized in such moments. Shin Yinwei's boyfriend discreetly nudged her arm, whispering, "Uncle and Auntie's relationship is truly admirable. Have they never quarreled after all these years?" Shin Yinwei chuckled and shook her head. She had certainly witnessed their disagreements. However, each time, it was her father who would relent first. He would clumsily buy a bouquet of her mother's favorite roses, blushing as he admitted his fault, prompting her mother to laugh uncontrollably. In truth, there are no inherently perfect souls. Rather, it is the willingness to smooth out each other's rough edges that matters. As her father once said, before meeting her mother, his world was shrouded in darkness. It was her mother who brought him a beam of light, one he could never bear to let go. As dusk settled, the scent of roses grew increasingly rich. Shinjin grasped Su-won's hand, their fingers entwined. The warmth of his palm was as fervent and steadfast as it had been years ago. He leaned down, whispering softly in her ear, "Won, in the next life, I wish to meet you again." Su-won looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the evening glow. Smiling tenderly, "Yes, time may slow, but our love remains ever youthful. In this life, what a fortune it is to share my days with you." Chapter 13 Extra 3 time passed, and the roses in the estate bloomed vibrantly during Shun Yinwei's wedding year. The delicate pink and white petals densely adorned the trellis. And when the wind blew, it felt as though a gentle rain of flowers had fallen. The wedding was not ostentatious, but it radiated warmth in every detail. Shin Yinwei, clad in her wedding dress, held her husband's hand, her eyes glistening with emotion as she turned to look at Su-won and Shinjin below. Shinjin sat beside Su-won, his back still straight, though the silver in his hair was increasingly noticeable. He held Su-won's hand, his calloused fingers grazing her wrist. His gaze fixed upon their daughter, filled with pride yet tinged with an imperceptible sorrow. "Are you reluctant?" Su-won asked softly, tilting her head. Shinjin replied with a husky murmur. "After nurturing our daughter for so many years, she is now being taken away." Su-won couldn't help but laugh. Adjusting his collar, "The children must carve their own paths. We should be happy for them." Shinjin turned to her, his eyes glistening with warmth as he brushed aside a stray hair from her temple, his voice low and tender. "As long as you are by my side, that is enough." After the wedding, Shin Yinwei followed her husband abroad to settle down. The sprawling estate was left with just Su-won and Shinjin. Life grew increasingly leisurely. Shinjin retired completely, entrusting the company's affairs to his deputy. No longer did he need to face towering piles of paperwork or drink excessively for social engagements. Each morning, he would accompany Su-won for their morning exercises, strolling along the lakeside path, listening to the birds and watching the sunrise. After their morning routine, they would busy themselves in the kitchen together. Su-won would wash the vegetables while Shinjin chopped them, sunlight streaming through the window, casting a warm golden hue upon them. Occasionally, Su-won would cough from the steam, prompting Shinjin to set down his knife to pat her back, playfully scolding her for being careless. Though his eyes sparkled with amusement, the afternoons stretched on languidly. Su-won enjoyed sitting in a wicker chair knitting, while Shinjin perched beside her, wearing his reading glasses, perusing old photo albums. The albums contained pictures from their wedding, moments from their daughter's first month, and joyous family vacations by the sea. "Look here." Shinjin pointed to a photo, his lips curving into a smile. "This was when Yin Yin was 3. She insisted on riding on my shoulders to pick roses, only to tumble down and cry for ages." Su-won leaned in to view the picture, where a younger Shinjin, with his still black hair, wore an expression of affectionate exasperation, while little Shin Yinwei clung to him, her face flushed from tears. She was quite the handful back then. Su-won recalled with a smile, "Always trailing behind you, wanting to be your little shadow." Shinjin closed the album, taking her hand in his. His grip, though not as strong as in his youth, remained warm. Time flies, he murmured softly. In the blink of an eye, we have grown old. Suwon gazed at the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, her heart swelling with affection. She shook her head. You are not old, in my eyes. You will always be the man who grows jealous for me and protects me. A glimmer of light appeared in Shunjin's eyes as he leaned down to gently kiss her forehead. This kiss lacked the fervor of youth, but was imbued with the depth of accumulated years, tender enough to stir the heart. In his later years, Shunjin's health began to wane. Once, while pruning roses in the garden, he accidentally fell and sprained his ankle. Suwon was frantic, insisting on taking him to the hospital. Yet Shunjin held her hand and laughed. It's nothing. I'm just an old bone. A little fall is no big deal. Despite his words, he spent the night in pain, unable to sleep. Suwon sat by the bed, massaging his ankle, her eyes reddened. Shunjin, feeling guilty, wiped away her tears. Don't cry. See? I'm fine, aren't I? You must promise not to be stubborn anymore, Suwon choked out. Shunjin nodded, pulling her into his embrace. All right, I will listen to you. During that time, Suwon never left his side. She made him soup, engaged him in conversation, and at night, found solace only when holding his hand to sleep. Watching her busy figure warmed Shunjin's heart immensely. He thought to himself that marrying Suwon was the greatest fortune of his life. Once his ankle healed, Shunjin became even more clingy. When Suwon watered the flowers, he would bring a small stool to sit nearby. When she cooked, he would follow her around, incessantly reminding her to be careful. Even when she went to the bathroom, he would wait by the door. Suwon found him bothersome, yet couldn't help but soften. She understood that this man feared losing her. One evening, they sat in the yard watching the sunset. The evening glow painted half the sky red, the clouds seemingly ablaze. Breathtakingly beautiful, the fragrance of roses wafted through the air, sweet and light. Shunjin suddenly spoke. Won, in the next life, would you still be willing to marry me? Suwon turned to face him. His hair had turned completely white, and his face was lined with wrinkles, yet the gaze he held for her remained unchanged. Filled with love, Suwon smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She reached out, grasping his hand tightly. Yes, she said, in the next life. In the life after that, I will always be willing. A satisfied smile crept across Shunjin's lips. He pressed her hand against his cheek, relishing her warmth. The sun slowly descended, the last rays casting long shadows of the two of them. The roses in the yard bloomed year after year. Time etched marks upon their faces. Yet it never dulled the love between them. From youthful exuberance to silvered temples, they walked hand in hand through a long life. There were no dramatic twists of fate, only the gentle flow of companionship and the deep affections that accumulated through the years. The journey ahead is long, yet how fortunate it is to have you. Growing old together, it is as simple as that.